Alright, here we are back with the I Will Never Forgive You podcast. This is episode 5. Our topic today is going to be long versus short anime series. And we'll be getting into that later, but for now, a little bit of promotion. Like and subscribe. You know the drill. This ain't your first day on YouTube. You know what to do. Comments. Looking for more comments. We're not getting as many comments as I would hope, so feel free to be a blabbermouth down there. It's all good. Anything anime. If you know, one of the things that maybe you may not realize you can do. Ask me any random anime questions you want. Like, for instance, what do I think of the style of dress? Or do I like certain time periods, for anime? Or do I think it's too Japanese-centric? Which, would some people might consider to be a dumb question, but, considering it comes from Japan, it'd be like saying American movies are too American-centric. But whatever, I don't think there are any dumb questions. You can ask whatever you want. Feel free, open it up. It doesn't just have to be what we talk about here. It can be any anime comments, any anime questions. You also leave comments, by the way. My opinion is there's too much goddamn anime in the world. Whatever. You can just leave an opinion too. It doesn't have to be a question. So feel free to go off. Also, I have a Patreon. Tier 3 is the official podcast tier for the Patreon. There's also, you get one movie a month over there, and then all the backlog of all the movies I've ever done, are there. So, the embedded movies anyway. And also, you will get the podcast early. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. Usually it's Thursday or Friday I record. I'm actually recording this on a Wednesday. It's going to drop Wednesday night probably. So it's going to be super early. And one of the reasons I did that, we're going to get into this later, but there's pre-recorded segments, and I'm excited to talk about it this week. I really wanted to do this podcast like 3 or 4 days ago. I've been really excited to do this particular podcast. I have a lot to say, and so I had to force myself to wait till Wednesday to see if there's any other anime opinions I would form going to my weekly rotation of Bleach and JoJo and all the other ones I watch. Started a new anime this week, 2 new anime actually. You'll see where they rank. I'm currently watching 8 different anime. I'm about to start a 9th called Fate Zero, which is another series that follows up on the footsteps of Fate, Unlimited Blade Works, whatever, and then the 3 movies, the Heaven's Feel movies. So I love that universe. I'm ready to get right back into all that. So I'm going to be by the time we talk, I'll have seen 4 episodes of that, I believe. Yeah, 4. Yeah, because I'm going to watch 2 this Sunday. It's going to be every Saturday, actually. On my Patreon, Tier 1. It'll be every Saturday. There'll be 2 of those dropping. So I've watched 4 episodes of that. So we'll be up to 9 different anime that I'm watching. Although I am kind of wrapping up One Piece. Now, I've less than 100 left. I'm doing 5 a week. So sooner or later that's going to run out. And that'll be a while. Though, I'll feel lonely without all my One Piece friends, Not just people who watch and comment, obviously you, but also just the characters. So that's going to be bad. But let's not get sad ahead of ourselves. So I had to force myself to wait till Wednesday. So this one is going to be dropping super early. Typically, you can expect the early access to be Thursday or Friday before the Sunday would drop. And then also once a month, I'm doing some kind of anime-related video. The first one was talking about a day in the life of recording anime. And the one I just recently did was I watched it's a reaction to an anime short called Cat Soup. We'll be getting into my thoughts of that later. That was one of my pre-recorded segments. I don't typically do pre-recorded segments for this. I want it to be fresh. But in situations where I have an opinion, I have something I want to do for the podcast, but it was literally 10 to 12 days before the podcast was going to get recorded, I would have never remembered what I wanted to say. So I went ahead and put my thoughts on video while I had them. I did the same thing. I also have, for the other animation category this week, I'm going to be talking about Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, my overall thoughts of the entire series. I did that as soon as I finished watching the last 5 episodes of the entire series, and I wanted to record those thoughts while they were fresh as well. So those are my 2 pre-recorded segments this time, and the rest of it I'll be doing now. So. But yeah, that's, go over to Tier 3 on Patreon. It's just $5 a month, and you can support the channel. And just got Hunter Stone over there. Really appreciate that. Anybody else wants to jump over there and support the channel, that helps me keep doing these podcasts. So let me change this. My show notes actually say episode 4. We're up to 5. It's crazy. The one I told you about that I model all my basically podcast ideas are modeled after Black Guy Who Tips podcast. Keep it, scheduled and all the gospels I took from that. He's up to 3,000 episodes. Jesus Christ. I'll be lucky to get to 100. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't even think. Hello Internet is the podcast that broke my heart. They just stopped. They stopped doing episodes and never talked to the fans. Never told the fans it was stopping. Fans waited for over a year for a new episode and finally realized, well, I guess they're just not going to make anymore. But they got up to 100. But they were only doing 1 or 2 a month, which I guess is what I'm doing. I'm doing about 2 a month, maybe a little bit more than 2 months, depending on how many weeks are in a month. Some months get 5 weeks. So yeah, it'll probably, they were dating. They did that shit for like 7 years. It's going to take me a while to get to 100, but we're up to 5. So there we are. Alrighty, well, I believe that's all the promotion we need to do. So let's go ahead and get into the comments. We're in the feedback segment. First comments are from my poll where I was asking about the podcast topic when you guys selected long versus short series. Everything else only got like about 17%. This was a runaway. This is 53% out of 4 choices, which is pretty good. Darth Vader, DL2XK. I think those last... Anything after the dash is something YouTube puts on there, I believe. Anyway, Darth Vader... Short versus long series is worth remembering the impact of the strike in the last decade had on companies choosing less episodes. I don't know anything about that. If anybody would care to elaborate, like when that happened, I can also look it up, I guess. That would be interesting. I would eventually want to have a PhD in anime, which means I would want to know everything about how it's done, how the sausage is made, what affected it. This strike sounds like this was a big deal. Well, I bet that hurt, that whatever year that came out. So that's something I can look. I'm sure there's only like one major strike, so I can look that up at some point. But that's interesting. Gustavo, long name. It's also a little hard to see the tiny letters, with my old ass eyes, right? But Gustavo something. There's 4 names. I'm watching Star Trek, and I really feel the impact 20 episodes make in a 50-minute show. Here's what's interesting about that comment. Is that a positive or negative thing? Are you saying you feel the impact in a positive way, or you feel the impact in a negative way for a 50-minute show? Personally, I miss 20-episode seasons. I know a lot of people, probably the sweet spot is 13-episode seasons once a year. That's what the, FX and USA Network and some of these other, not necessarily network televisions, but some of the other cable channels started going to. I know that the network model, the over-air network, the Big 4 or Big 5, their model was 24 episodes a season, sometimes 22. CW would be 22. And the Sci-Fi Channel went to 20, and they would break it up into 2 10-episode blocks and have a mid-season finale and a mid-season premiere, because season premieres and season finales have the highest ratings. So if you take a 20-episode season, you split it in half and have a mid-season finale, and then have the premiere of the second half of the season, you're getting 4 of your 16 episodes get the high ratings instead of 4 of your 20 episodes, get the high ratings instead of 2 of your 20 episodes. That was a good model. That worked. And then what they would do was you would get a 20-episode season in one calendar year, but there'd be a 2 or 3 or 4 month gap between the 2 blocks, right? So they shoot it all, finish the first half, air that, and while they're airing it, and while they're working on finishing the second half, and then they would air that, right? So they had more time to refine the back half of the episode. You would notice like the second half of the seasons would just be more crisp, sharper, tighter edited. Some of the plot holes would be taken out because they just had more time to work on it, right? So they could just tweak it and refine it and polish it and all that stuff. That worked pretty good. But now we've gone down, and then we went down to basically 13 episode seasons was the model. I don't know what's happening on network TV. I don't really watch network TV shows anymore. I'm trying to think what I've done reactions to. The live action stuff I've done reactions to in the past year or two. I don't think any of that has been over air network TV. Not a single thing. I don't think any of it. Like, that is wild if I think about it. It's all been premium cable channels like HBO or Apple TV or stuff like that, or some legacy shows. Even the legacy shows like The Wire, for instance, was HBO. So I don't really know what they're doing on the networks right now, but I'm assuming it's still about 24 episodes. But everybody else has gone to 13, and then they went from 13 to 10. Now 10 seems to be the standard. And sometimes when you're doing a 10 episode season, you end up combining two episodes for one reason or another. Sometimes budgetary concerns. Sometimes you realize you just only have, like the Watchmen had a 10 they were greenlit for a 10 episode season, but the showrunner, the guy from Lost, whatever that his name is, realized they only had 9 episodes of story. They broke all the stories and they looked at it all, and they only had 9 episodes worth of story, which means one of those, if they did a 10th episode, it was going to be filler. So they said, let's just not waste our time. Let's only do 9 and put the money we would have spent on a 10th episode in across those 9 episodes and have a little bit slightly higher budget per episode, right? So we've gone from, and Severance did the same thing. The first season of Severance was supposed to have 10 episodes, and they got down to 9. Yellow Jackets, I think, lost an episode in one of their seasons. So, so it's been 10 or 9. And then now we've got some of these shows are doing 8 episode seasons. Fallout had an 8 episode season. Daredevil, a lot of the Marvel TV shows are 9 episodes. They're either 6, 8, or 9. So we're down to like some of these seasons of TV are 6 to 8 episodes. That's it. What was House of the Dragon? Was that 8 episodes? They went from 10 to 8. So now it's become the norm to have a 6 to 8 episode season and then take 2 or 3 years off before you get another season. So instead of 24 episodes in 9 months, you take 3 months off and then we do another 24 episodes. We have gone down to 6 to 8 episodes and then you take 2 years off and you get 6 to 8 more episodes. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, that is just, you're at the point where you just have butchered the entire thing, right? Like, so, and as I say this, I realize I'm basically having my long versus short series talk now. I meant to save this stuff for later, so let's have that part be a teaser, and let me get back to the comments, but I probably should have saved that comment for the main topic. So, Jesus. Oh well. To be continued later in the podcast. I gotta follow the notes, man. Like, that's how I stay organized. Or we're gonna be here all day. Nobody wants that. All right, so that is the comments from the poll. Now we're gonna do the comments from last podcast episode. Ariel says you watched at least one episode of the Inuyasha. Is Inuyasha. I think it was over a year ago. Maybe 2, I don't remember. I know it wasn't more than that. I think the views weren't enough for you to continue at the time. It has 167 episodes in its main run, plus another 26 episodes in a sequel known as the Final Act. And then I replied, I just image searched it and have a very slight memory of a red-robed, silver-haired chick, so you must be right. I still don't remember this shit. I've never seen this show before in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I guess the image search. Like the image, I guess I did the image search 11 days ago, so I don't remember anymore. She's like, I recall you did at least one short on it as well. So there is video evidence I did this shit. So I guess I can't get away from it. But as far as I'm concerned, if I was to testify in a court of law with my hand on the Bible, I've never seen this show before in my life. I just don't remember. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Fairy Tail's the one that stuck with me. I watched 2 episodes of Fairy Tail, maybe 1. It's either 1 or 2. The views were trash. And I really liked it. And I still think about it. It's been over a year. I still think about how much I liked Fairy Tail. Y'all got me watching you got me watching JoJo, you got me watching Bleach. Man, I want to get back to Fairy Tail. Now, we're going to have to do something. Now, in the short term, when I finish One Piece, I'm just going to try to focus on other things because I have not been able to record 5 or 10 episodes of Bleach and JoJo in a week. I'm trying to do 10 just to catch up, and I can't even get to 5 in most cases. So, in the short run, with One Piece gone, I'm just going to focus the time I would have spent on One Piece on these other shows. In the long term, I'll eventually replace One Piece with something. Maybe it'd be Fairy Tail, maybe it'd be this Inuyasha, maybe it'd be something else. Leave a comment if you think there's an anime I haven't done that I should give consideration to. We can kind of open it up to nominations. Maybe I'll run a poll or something. Polls aren't very scientific. Something could win a poll and then get 5 views. It'll win a poll by 35 votes, but then only get 5 views. So who knows? But it's it's still nominated. We can still do a poll and just see what people think. That's always interesting. All right, D4C. You don't have to rewatch the entirety of Evangeline. They released a movie called Dead and Rebirth that plays catch up for the end of eventually. Yeah, so that's what I'll do. I can just watch Dead and Rebirth, do a reaction to that, and then do a reaction to Evangeline. We've got Memorial Day coming up tomorrow when you watch this on Sunday. Will I have time to do any of that by Sunday? I want to do something for Memorial Day. I want to memorialize 3 years of doing anime. My channel's up. This channel's about to surpass my old channel, the Not Safe for Work channel, the Drunk channel that got shadow banned for a couple years. We're about to pass it in subscribers, and I would like to memorialize the I know Memorial Day is about honoring the dead. That channel's not dead, but I would like to memorialize, 3 years of anime, essentially. Like, I know I'm perverting the concept of Memorial Day, but I'm just saying I want to do something special for it. So we'll see what happens. Okay, next few comments are going to be from Hunter Stone. There are anime movies that cover major parts of the beginning of One Piece, and I've heard they weren't really good. I also don't think that doing live action movies like that is a very smart business decision. These movies would only be for the fans. If someone who only watched the first movie heard the second movie skip 50 episodes of the anime, they'd be discouraged, or if they decided to watch it, they would be confused during the movie and not want to continue. I don't know. I don't agree with that, because here's the thing. First of all, we know that Hollywood is capable of doing something like this because they did it with The Dark Tower. You had 7 Dark Tower novels. You have an 8th novel that slots into the 7. And then you have some Dark Tower short stories. And they made a movie that just kind of threw all that in there, right? Then you have the Percy Jackson movies. The first movie adapted the first 2 or 3 books, just kind of haphazardly. The second movie adapted a couple more of the books, just haphazardly, just all over the place. They released these movies. Like, they did these things, right? Hollywood doesn't give a shit about what you're saying here. Because I agree with you that that's a possibility. But if I was in charge, it wouldn't happen this way. But I'm saying Hollywood could totally do that, right? Like, because we've seen them do it. There's plenty of evidence. His Dark Materials may have also had that problem. I'm not as well versed on that. But Hollywood's perfectly capable of taking a long-running series. They did it with Remo the Destroyer back in the 80s. They're perfectly capable of taking a long-running series and just throwing a bunch of crap at, combining it together and pushing that out. And sometimes these movies are even successful. Come to find out, like, hey, wait a minute. This is based on a much larger, denser group of material, right? So I don't know. So Hollywood could do it. But see, what I would do is, they may hear that 50 episodes have been skipped, but if you start with the first movie, just be the beginning of the anime, and the second movie just kind of feels like a continuation, and maybe you do some kind of like montage at the beginning to show, like, hint at some of these other adventures. Like, say for instance, we want to skip the arc where Chopper comes on board. We just have them meeting Chopper early, or we can show a little montage of them getting him on board, or you can just handle in dialogue. Hey, Chopper, welcome aboard. Like, we just stopped by your island and we brought you with us. You can cover that, right? And then they wouldn't be missing anything. There'll be other adventures they're just not seeing, right? So I don't know that there need to be any people who have not watched the anime and haven't read the manga who would be like, wait a minute, we're missing shit. I don't think that's true. Look how popular the Harry Potter movies are. And those movies cut out half of the books 3 through 7. Well, 3 through 6 specifically, because they did 2 movies for 7. But books 3 through 6 got half of their shit cut out. And I don't remember anybody leaving the theater like, man, I feel like we only got half the story. Which, book 3, for instance, you did only get half the story. There was massive plot holes caused by the fact they didn't put enough in from the books. Just one thing, why was it a secret them going back in time and stuff? Because in the book, the Minister of Magic is right there breathing down their necks. He's watching everything that's happening. They had to go back in time to stop everything because he was there in the castle watching everything everybody did. So they had to trick him, and the only way to trick him is go back in time. In the movie, he's not there. They can just go break Sirius out. Who's going to stop him? What, Snape? Snape is loyal to Dumbledore. Nobody can stop him. There's nobody there to do anything. So there's so many things that didn't make sense about that movie because they didn't do enough from the book. And despite that, people consider that their favorite movie in the entire franchise. It drives me crazy. I care less and less about the Harry Potter franchise the more and more that the author becomes trash and has always been trash. But the more she just shows her complete ass, the less I care about the franchise. So I guess it doesn't bother me anymore. But goddamn, man, I mean, it used to drive me crazy that everybody's favorite book adaptation was the third movie. Like it just when that was the one that butchered the source material the most. Like I just want to slap all of you. So anyway, I don't think anybody's gonna be who hasn't read the manga and who hasn't watched the anime is gonna be like, oh my god, we're missing shit. I refuse to watch it. I'm angry at the movie. I don't think that would happen because what you have to do, the way you make that not happen is it's the way you end a movie and the way you start the next movie. You make it feel continuous. You make it feel like they didn't miss anything important. Whereas people who have read the manga and people who have read the anime can just mentally fill in the blanks, right? Because what are the most important story beats of the entire anime series? We'll just do anime because I haven't read the manga. But the most important story beats, if you were to take, say there have been 20,000 story beats, there's more than one story beat per episode. We've had 1,140 episodes. So let's say a little less than 10 story beats per episode. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to get too caught up in numbers. This isn't a math podcast. This is an anime podcast. Let's say 10,000. Because I'm thinking, you could have 4 or 5 story beats an episode. Sometimes some episodes won't have any, right? Like, the story beat is the overall thing. Like, for instance, a story beat could be, Sanji defeating Queen. That took 10 episodes. So the important thing is that we see Sanji beat Queen. That Sanji beating Queen is a thing that has to happen. It's a story beat. It's a thing. It's a milestone. It's a mile marker, right? So you can have other story beats happening at the same time, or the next episode, or the previous episode. But say there's 10,000 story beats over the course of the entire series. How many of them are crucial to understanding the material and getting everything you can with the limitations of what we have here? Probably 10%, right? Like, maybe story beats of Nami going back and you have the Oolong Pirates and you have all this stuff. You could live without it. Now, some of these things are precious to you, but you know what they say if you're a writer? Kill your darlings, kill the thing most precious to you. Just because you're personally invested doesn't make it a good part of the story, right? So the Nami thing, going back and fighting, those pirates and all this stuff, could just be handled as backstory. Like, maybe she did that before she met Usopp, before she met Luffy, I don't know. I mean, one of the things you can definitely take out is, all the flashbacks. And just have, maybe you could do a couple flashbacks, again, we could talk about how many flashbacks have we had. Well, obviously, the backstory of the dude with the diaper and the pacifier is not an important flashback. It's great, it's interesting, I love it, but we have the anime for that shit. What's crucial to telling your story? That's what you need to figure out. Nami's backstory, is that crucial to who she is now? When's the last time she has mentioned on screen as of episode 1065? When she last talked about wanting to map the entire world? When does that last come up? When's the last time she's had to navigate anything? We've gone 2 places in 400 episodes. She doesn't need to navigate anything. She's not doing the maps anymore, as far as we know. If she is, it's off screen. Did we need that backstory? Think about it. Really sit down and think about this shit and do this with every one of these major story beats. You can pull a lot of that shit out, and then you have the most important part of the story, and you tell that story, and you do that over a series of movies, and you just make sure that you end the movie in such a way and you begin the next movie in such a way that people don't feel like they've been left out. You don't have 3 new crew members on the ship and never explain where they come from. You don't have new scars or new powers without explaining where they come from. New adversaries, new people chasing them. Oh, we pissed off Big Mom in between movies. You don't do any of that shit. And I think you'll be fine. I just don't think... I could be wrong. I could always be wrong. And, anime fans are definitely different than, feature film fans. But we're talking about you're gonna get the anime and the manga fans anyway, no matter what you do. At least for the first couple of movies. Now, they may... there are certainly, I'm sure, anime and manga fans who refuse to watch the live-action series after watching a couple episodes. Whatever. You lose those guys, whatever. You were never going to get them. what you're trying to do is bring in a bunch of new movie fans, right? So, in my opinion, you could do this. But, I mean, these are reasonable objections. I understand that. But that's the way I see all that. You have not released the first episode of your reaction to the One Piece live action. I need to get on that. Let me look that up right now. Okay. Oh, so it has to be edited. Oh, shit. I see. Yeah, I'm never going to have time to do that anytime soon. So, yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I didn't do it as a full reaction. I don't think. I can go look at it's possible as a full reaction. In that case, I can release it. But it was not uploaded as a full reaction that I made private just for Patreon. So, although Hunter has since joined my Patreon, so I guess that's something I could do. I could link him to that now, except I don't think I still have it on my Google Drive, because that's probably where it used to be. All right, well, I'll just make a note for myself to put that on my Google Drive for people on Patreon, and then that will inspire me to find some time to edit it soon and just put it on YouTube as an edited video. And if that does well, maybe I can be inspired to do the rest of the series. So, with season 2 coming out, it might be sensible business-wise to do that anyway. Capitalize on the trend surfing. You know what I'm saying? So, when does that come out? Let me look it up. Apparently, there's been no release date set, but they're saying late this year. So, I got time. Yay! I don't have to worry about it right now in May. All right. I really felt like they should have resolved the conflict between Cecil and Mark in season 3. Yeah, that's interesting. We're talking about Invincible here. That's interesting. I think they should have resolved something somewhere at some point. I would be fine with that. For me, I don't mind that being, the thing they don't resolve, but maybe then you resolve the Mars attacks crap, or you bring the father back to Earth this season and have some of that catharsis, or any of the other myriad of things that they just didn't. I don't remember all the plot points now. There's a under criminal element. The big dude who has worked with Mark twice now and betrayed him once and didn't betray him the second time. So I don't know. I mean, then you got Metalhead, whatever his name was. So none of that shit, none of it got resolved really. So I wouldn't mind something getting resolved. Like, that's your choice. That's valid. I don't mind that being a source of tension moving forward. But I do think Mark has softened his opinion on all this, don't you? Like, at the end of the season kind of brought it home. One of the things with Aaron Paul's character, I don't mind that not being resolved yet because that just started the season. But it just brings home, like, why are you bringing up new conflicts to be resolved later when you haven't even resolved the old conflicts to be resolved later, right? So, but yeah, I didn't mind that being something you carry over. But some of this other shit should be, like the Mars attacks thing. Nobody gives a shit about Mars invading Earth. We don't care about the hive mind crap. They've already been defeated. This has been since season 1. We're at the end of season 3, man. Can we just end this stupid Mars attacks crap? I'm sick of that, man. That's the one plot line I wish they could just excise immediately. We're done with it, man. Jesus. So, unless like some bad guys, like they start, hive minding the Vegemites or something, and that'd be how we defeat them. That'd be great. But otherwise, man, like it's a go nowhere ass plot line that we've already done. We've been there, seen there, done that. Bought the T-shirt, threw the T-shirt in the trash, and they're still doing this crap. So, I'm over it. So anyway, another Hunterstone comment. Berserk was a 1-season anime that you watched. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Where would I rank it? Bottom. Unresolved. They didn't adapt the whole anime. It was very rushed, and I just don't think it deserves the hype. I think people who like it are actually fans of the manga, and I hear the manga is just really, really good. So I don't dislike anybody who likes the anime, but like they are really in love with the manga. I mean, come on. The anime itself was no great shakes. The animation was terrible. The story was rushed and unresolved. And even fortunately, I watched it in the correct viewing order. They ruined the whole plot line in the first episode. Hey, here's everything that's going to happen later, you dumbasses. Here, let me piss all over you, right? So that was a really stupid decision. So I'm glad I started with episode 2 and finished with episode 1, which is the correct viewing order. I was told to do that. I just don't think it's very good. It was rushed. But that's probably why I forgot that I ever watched it. And finally, from Understone, after you posted the community post asking which show is most like anime, I've been trying to think of an answer. I'm having difficulty thinking of a show. I do not think Invincible feels like an anime. I do agree with your points, but I feel like there is still a little bit more that makes anime. One answer I did come up with is Fallout. Yeah, Fallout feels pretty anime, doesn't it? It's like the focus on characterization, the focus on backstory impacting the present day, and then whatever the hell my third point was. So that's what makes an anime. A sense of humor. That's what it was. It has all that. Fallout has all that. So yeah, I think it does qualify. It qualifies. That's a good one. I like that choice. I think not every show would fit the anime style of storytelling. That's true. Like, especially if the show just doesn't have a sense of humor, What are some humorless ass shows that we've seen in the past? Just, there was a little bit of humor in The Wire. Yeah, that shit got pretty grim pretty fast. A lot of the humor in Game of Thrones was forced. And a lot of it was unintentional. So, that's a pretty humorless show overall. Oh, yeah, I think, if they're humorless, that's definitely something I'm not interested in. The flashbacks right before the character dies or is in the middle of the current story is something that people are used to in anime and accepted it as a standard. In my opinion, it's still not very good when that happens. Yeah, I kind of agree. But I doubt it'd work in movie, TV series where people have different expectations for how the story is told. But one of the most popular TV series ever, Lost, did exactly this. They would have flashbacks in the middle of fights. They'd have flashbacks right before people died. People who died in an episode would have the entire episode flashbacks be about them. So it happened. I mean, Lost pulled it off. Like, not every show's Lost. That's true. But, there's at least one popular show I can think of that pulled it off. So I think that, there's no blanket answer for anything. There's an exception to everything. But overall, I think it's just a matter that there's more people that watch live action shows than watch anime shows. So, say 100 people watch anime, and 1,000 people watch live action. And let's say 10% of both of them are irritated by flashbacks. When 100 people are watching it, 10 of them are complaining. You can ignore 10 people complaining pretty easily. When 1,000 people are watching it, 100 of them are complaining. It's a lot harder to ignore 100 people complaining. So I think the discontent is the same percentage across the board. It's just you have such a larger number of people watching the live action, it feels like there are more people complaining about flashbacks in live action than are watching anime. In my example, at least. It's 100 and 100, right? So I think it's just there's more people watching live action. So there'll be more people complaining, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a higher percentage of people who are dissatisfied with it. That this is why you can't have anything Marvel or Star Wars without all these grifters coming out there bitching about this, that, and the other, and how this sucks and all this stuff. It's because such a higher number of people watch Marvel and watch Star Wars, right? So, for instance, some movie can come out and bomb. There was a DC movie that bombed really bad. Was it Madam Web? Was that a DC movie? Just stunk up the entire. Just so bad. I think it was Madam Web because it was by Fox. No, it wasn't DC. It was the Fox universe. There was a DC movie that came out that was just absolutely effing terrible. Just so bad. I don't remember what it was, but you know what I remember? I remember that nobody was doing grifter videos about it because nobody gives a shit because you don't have the number of people watching the DC movies as you do watching Marvel movies or Star Wars movies. Yeah, Star Trek could be another example. There's a lot of grifters bitching about Star Trek as well. But you take something like, if you were to put up a video about how there was a Stargate SG-1 video game that came out last year. If you were to put up a video about how that game is woke and it sucks, a grifter style video, it's woke and it sucks, you wouldn't make any money because you don't have enough people playing it because it's just not as popular as Marvel and Game of Thrones is another example that's pretty popular in Star Wars. You know, so they don't do it. See, they want you. The grifters want you to believe they care so much about the culture and our innocent, fragile eyes seeing the wrong things, and they're here to help us and protect us from these horrible things. Come here, let me protect you. You know, let me protect you. These you know, watch your avert your eyes. Don't look. Let me protect you from this horrible woke ass content. You know, this terrible messaged, you know, all this horrible shit. Let me protect you from this because it makes me money. Why am I not protecting you from the broke ass, you know, no money, no popularity ass franchises that do the exact same shit? You think Stargate SG-1 ain't woke? It's woke as hell. It's woke as a mofo. You know, but there ain't nobody protecting your eyes from that, are they? Because it's not popular. It's not popular. So the grifters don't give a shit. They're just there to protect you from the popular shit because that's how they make their money. Yeah, God, these people annoy me so much. But so yeah, I think that like that's just there's just more people watching live action, so the complaints will be higher. And shows and movies that have tried to emulate anime, you know, there's been a few. There was an Aeon Flux. I would still want to actually. Was that ever an anime? Was Aeon Flux or whatever it's called ever an anime? Because I wouldn't mind checking out the actual anime because the movie I like the movie, but man, the people hate the movie, and I think it bombed pretty bad, right? And so there are like some of these live action movies. Last Airbender was another one, man. Boy, did people hate that live action movie. My God, and I saw some of the TV series. It's not the what is it, the Mona Lisa? It's not the Mona Lisa of television. It's not some sacred, precious piece of art that must be protected at all costs. It's just for it was the humor is just too young for me. I couldn't that and Death Note. The only shows I rage quit Death Note. I didn't rage quit Last Airbender. I just was like, you know what? This is just humor is for 8 and 9-year-olds. I'm just not into it. I'm too old for fart jokes. I'm just too old, man. I'm too old to find fart jokes funny. So it just missed me with that shit. And the other immature ass shit that they had. And maybe that's just season 1. I don't know. I just couldn't get through it, man. But so I watched the movie. I thought the movie was fine. But man, boy, did people hate the movie. My God, they tore that movie up. So maybe it was only the same percentage of people that would have not liked the TV series. But because it's live action, the numbers are just so much larger. It feels like infinity number of people, right? It feels like there's so many people. These grifters make so much money because there's just so many people, man. So yeah, that could be what's happening with live action. And in this, that was Barracuda, by the way. This is also Barracuda. Season 3 of Invincible felt so rushed. Twins just killed by Mark's brother. That I hated that. Yeah, the one goddamn plot line you actually wrap up is the effing twins. The characters I actually like, but you bring back Fathead. You give him another bunch of episodes, and I still think he's alive, ain't he? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's alive. He's alive. So that's another storyline they didn't finish. They didn't resolve that shit. But you killed the twins. The two coolest ass, really the coolest ass, you know, just duplicated character you got, man. Him, you finalize. You can always say there's another double out there somewhere, so you can, and they probably will. I hope they do. That one I wouldn't mind having them stick around to the end of the series. I really like those characters. They're funny, man. I like them, and I like the dynamics. I like how they work and get betrayed and still work and get betrayed. And, you know, all that's good. You know, that is the one story. No, this we have to finish. You sorry sons of bitches. Rush conflict between Invincible and Cecil. Some new arcs that came out of nowhere. Probably talking about Aaron Paul's character. I didn't mind that. What I really didn't, I could not stand the fact that he, through his power, killed his wife and kid who were there because of him. And he blames that on Mark. The other shit you can totally blame on Mark. I have no problem with you blaming on Mark. But you got to be factual, man. You got to be actual factual. And the actual factual reality is your power killed him because you're trying to kill him. You did that shit. And I know that's part of his character. It's a character flaw. It's written that way on purpose. Like, the writers don't not know that. The writers know that. But the fact that nobody pushed back the entire season, nobody ever brought up the fact, look, it was your power that barbecued him, dumbass. Like, you can have him reject that. Yeah, no, it wasn't me. He forced me to use my power. That's fine. Can you effing acknowledge it? Please, just acknowledge it. Have somebody bring it up. It's so annoying. But other than that, I liked him. I didn't mind that at all. That was a good plot line. Felt like they created so many stories in the past 2 seasons, and all of a sudden realized that they had to conclude them because they don't have time or maybe money. And at the same time, they introduce a new one. The show starts to feel like a mess. Yeah, I don't 100% agree with all that, but I do agree with the sentiment. You know, like I said, I don't mind them introducing new shit, and I don't think that they're realizing they're running out of time or money. The show is basically printing money, as I understand. I think it probably lasts as long as they want to. You know, I mean, look at Rick and Morty. Like, who would have ever thought Rick and Morty would last this long? Invincible can last as long as they want. As long as they have stories to tell, they can last. I don't think that that's an issue. But, because here's the thing, another thing you're saying, they realized that the only thing they concluded was the twins, right? Is there anything else they concluded from the first 3 seasons in season 3? I don't think so. I don't think they concluded jack shit. They pushed everything to season 4. When in season 2 they pushed everything to season 3. So what the hell, man? You know what it really feels like? It really feels like season 2 and 3 are one season. If you watch them as one season, it's pretty good. It doesn't nearly feel as haphazard and as much of a mess if you want. And I think that's what they're doing. They're really writing to the binge model and posterity. And that's kind of how I do my videos, by the way. I don't do my videos for people that are going to see them today. I do them for people that are going to see them next year. That's why I don't promote shit in my regular videos, every video. There's going to be less than 100 podcasts total. I'm going to have 100 episodes of probably 10 different anime by this time next year. So nobody wants to see it 10,000 times of me saying, hey man, like, subscribe, go to my Patreon. Yeah. So I don't do that because I know people are going to watch, they're going to binge this shit. If they're going to binge, they want me to get straight into it. They want to see me react to the story. They don't want to see the intros. And long ass intros, when you're binging 100 or 200 or 500 episodes, really wears you down. I mean, get to the goddamn reaction. So I just scroll ahead. Man, some of these, like Diogenesis, they get right into it, man. They have like a 20-second intro. Boom, they are in there. Some of these other people be talking about recapping. Shelley, for instance, will spend 10 minutes recapping the last episode. We know the last episode. We saw it before you did. You ain't telling us shit that we didn't know, man. Like, get to the damn reaction. So, I record for posterity, and I think they're writing for posterity. I think they're writing the show so that when somebody binges it from the beginning all the way to the end, when they end up with like 12 seasons, it's a wonderful experience. It's really good. It's a great experience. Just go straight through it, just blast through all of it. It's not a seasonal experience. You're just screwing over the people who watch it season to season. But the amount of people who watch it season to season versus the amount of people who ever watch it till the end of time, the amount of people watching season to season is only going to be about 10-15%. The other 85% who ever watch this show will watch it after it's done. And they will binge the whole thing. And that's who they're writing to. I think that's kind of shitty. I don't like it, but I think that's what they're doing. And it makes sense, right? Like, it's more work to write seasonal stories. One story or group of stories taking place over 8 episodes that you feel like you wrapped up something, you saw an event, and you could see. How would you rank seasons in this? With Buffy, you had a big bad each season. 7 seasons, 7 big bads. The big bads are introduced early in the season and they're wiped out late in the season. You can rank those seasons. And a lot of what you're ranking is the big bad, but also there's other generational, character things that happen in each season. People meet, fall in love, people die, so you can rank the seasons because they don't all run together. How are you going to rank Invincible seasons? I think the unfinished season 2 is better than the unfinished season 3. There's nothing, you can't rank that shit. It's just all blends together, right? So they're not writing it as a seasonal experience, which I think is a major flaw. But that's just me. All right, we got Kill Dode. Actually, that's Kill Code. Tell you, man, my old ass eyes looking at this shit from this distance. We got quite a distance, and that text is small. I know I can make this text larger. Maybe I should. Maybe I should give my eyes a break and make the text larger. But that would be scary and new. So let me just I'll try to stick with the program. Anyway, Kill Code. I would actually love to see you react to the Evangeline movie. That's 2 people. I don't think I can turn it around by Memorial Day. But what about the 4th of July? Let's target the 4th of July. People remind me midway through June. That ain't even that long away. We're talking about a couple weeks. Remind me, and we'll do that as a. I'll do the two movies. I'll do the recap movie, and then I'll do the end movie. And also, I'm going to do the recap movie, but I'm also going to watch the last two episodes because I feel like they said the movie replaces the last two episodes, so I want to see what gets replaced. So I'll watch the movie, recap movie. I'll watch the last two episodes, then I'll watch the new movie, End of Evangeline, and we'll do all of that for our special July 4th thing. So just remind me, that would be cool. And he mentions Fate Zero here, which he's having me do, which I'm going to be starting on Saturday. So that'll be cool. So this is also from Kill Code. There are some decent Japanese TV shows, but not that many. I don't remember specifics, mostly because I can only see them in passing when my mom watches Japanese dramas. But the acting is very similar to anime, which I don't feel works that well in live action. Most, if not all, these shows are very low budget. That's a problem. Relying on sponsorships for funds. Oh, boy. Yeah. This Vice scene is brought to you by Kill Code cigarettes. Kill your lungs with Kill Code. Let's see. Most, if not all, these shows are... I would say that their strength lies more in movies, if anything. Perfect Days and One Cut of the Dead are two recent ones I've really enjoyed. You also have the whole golden age of 50s and 60s Japanese cinema, which I'm making my way through currently. Yeah, I mean, so there's some good shit out there. It sounds like the TV shows are just disposable trash. So, we got that going on. Kind of interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that, but that does make sense. Low budget is never good when you're talking about any kind of action, sci-fi, anything, man. So, yeah. All right, well, last comment, and Andy also did timestamps. That's always appreciated. Let me remember to pin his timestamps for this past podcast. I'll do that now. And go ahead and address this. He had another comment. I don't have nostalgia for Yu because we were talking about, we talked about that during this podcast. I watched it for the first time in 2020. That's crazy. That really surprised me when I first read this. You watched it first time in 2020. But there is a connection here. Let me finish this comment. If he doesn't mention it, I'll mention it. And then quit around the point of the anime you were currently on, and then came back and gave it another chance, and it became one of my favorite animes, even as an adult with no nostalgia for the series. That's interesting. That's an interesting journey. They really do fix everything. People who do have nostalgia for Yu love the Dark Tournament and swear it's the best anime tournament ever. And while it is a cool tournament, I don't understand the hype for it. I don't either. It's fine, but it's nothing. Well, I haven't seen the final round, but the final, it's a newer, bigger stadium, and whatever the final battles are, I haven't seen that, so I can't judge it yet. But so far, I'm not impressed. I didn't understand the hype for it other than nostalgia. Don't get me wrong, the Dark Tournament arc does get a lot better, but I wasn't extremely impressed with the show until the arc after the Dark Tournament. Okay, well, what he doesn't mention here is he's a huge fan of the guy who wrote the manga this is based on, right? Hunter x Hunter. So I guess this guy wrote Yu first, then he wrote Hunter x Hunter, and he's still around, isn't he? He hasn't died, I don't think. Not him, some of the other people have. But being a fan, and I think I said this to him in a comment somewhere recently, I'm a Stephen King fan, I'm a Christopher Nolan movie fan, I'm a Stephen King novel fan, Christopher Nolan movie fan, and Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy fan for TV shows. They've done Westworld, and they've done... The hell is their current show? Oh, this is interesting. He's not doing anything right now. Westworld ended a couple years back, man. When did Westworld end? 2022. So we're in 2025, and he has nothing in the works as far as I can see. Wild. Oh, he's a producer in Fallout. He's not a writer. Okay, so he's doing Fallout. That's what he's doing. So he's a producer, but not a writer. So I was looking at the writer category. Anyway, he did Perseverance, one of my top 10 favorite series ever. He did Westworld, one of my top 20 favorite series ever. Probably had the best first season of any TV series I've ever seen. And now he's doing Fallout, and season 1 was phenomenal. So anything Jonathan Nolan does, I will give him a chance. Anything Christopher Nolan does, they just happen to be brothers, but they're both brilliant, so what are we going to do? Anything Christopher Nolan does in movies, I'm going to give it a chance, even though he's slipping. His stock is slipping. He's had some shitty movies lately. I haven't seen them, but I hear Tenet's really bad and whatever. But still, I would still give it a chance. And in anything Stephen King does, I'd give it a chance. So, but doesn't mean I'll like it though. Like I said, I thought Interstellar was good, but not great. I have no interest in watching Dunkirk, even though he did it, because I'm just over war movies. I've had my 100 war movies I've seen. It's enough. I'm very familiar with Dunkirk, what happened there. I just have no interest in seeing that movie. So it doesn't mean I'm going to like everything to do, but I will give a chance at everything to do. And like, for instance, Stephen King lately has sucked. He's into this film, crime noir, Mr. Mercedes crap, and there's some woman that keeps appearing in all of his novels. It's all like crime. The horror is gone, Supernatural's gone. Now it's just a bunch of like crime shit. Just I don't know. I mean, basically Fargo. If it was novels, I don't mind Fargo as a TV show, but I don't want to watch Fargo by Stephen King. Read Fargo by Stephen King. I just have no interest in anything he's done like in the last 10 years. Like, I don't give a shit. His pulp novels, like he shifted into that genre, and I promise you I don't give a shit. I just don't care. So I don't give him a chance anymore with that stuff if I know what genre it is. Okay, this is another Mr. Mercedes. There's a Holly. I think Holly's that character. Holly has showed up in like 5 novels in the last 10 years. F Holly. I don't give a shit about Holly. Man, I promise you I don't care about Holly. So I'm not reading his current shit, but I would still, if he came out with something in a genre that I actually give a shit about, it would definitely get a chance. Like, The Institute was it the end? Or Revival. Revival has not been that long ago. And Revival is one of the best novels I've ever read, and that was by Stephen King. It may be 10, 15 years old by now, but still. Man, that shit was great. That was unbelievably good. So, don't read that shit right after your dad dies, though, because boy, that was not good. Anyway, I just think that there are people that you will give the benefit of the doubt to. That's what he did. That's why he kept returning the series. So he wasn't affected by nostalgia, but he was affected by affection for the creator, who has proven he's good. And you stuck with the series, and you found out, to your satisfaction, that you were right. Like, it was another good series because he's a good writer. Although this came before Hunter x Hunter, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So he would only improve from here. So I'll tell you, this doesn't feel like the same person wrote this and Hunter x Hunter. I'm not feeling that. And you know why? Because the character relationships. You have 2 guys who are friends, but the dynamic is so different. Hunter and, is it Gon? No, it's Gon and Killua. Gon and Killua's relationship is one of my favorite in anime. Yu and the bully, the bully's growing on me, but don't start him off as a bully if you want me to like him. Like, that's why I still call him the bully. Like, and their antagonism they have for each other can be funny, but it doesn't make for riveting character drama for me. I don't like antagonistic friendships. I don't like friends who snap at each other and insult each other. It's just not my thing, man. Like, if we have harsh words, there's a good chance I don't like you anymore. It's just, that's how I grew up. People calling me names, or people snap my head off, people being angry all the time and accusing me of shit that I didn't do, right? I grew up with that shit. So I don't want a friend who does that, right? Because it just sends me straight back to my childhood. So I just, I'm not comfortable with their friendship any more than I'm comfortable with Han and Leia's romance, where they snap at each other and they insult each other and they can't be honest with each other, and it's just all toxic, right? I don't like the toxic crap with friendships. So I don't like Yu's friendship with the bully, because it's not a friendship I would ever have. I can't relate to it. I like a friendship where you support each other. That's what Killua and Gon did, and they would argue and bicker, but it's always in an affectionate way. There's just a line, right? And Killua and Gon never crossed the line. Yu and Bully did. They started across the line, and now they're moving back across. And I think the author may have realized that, and that's why he made it a different central relationship in the Hunter x Hunter. Like, just so much better. And there wasn't even that antagonism between the 2 extra friends. The dude with the glasses and the other blondie. They would be a little bit like the dude with the glasses kind of reminds me more of the bully. So him and Gon kind of had a similar kind of relationship a little bit, but not really. They still never crossed the line, whereas these 2 did. So that's just my opinion. I think he grew as an author, and I think he became a better author. And Hunter x Hunter to me is so much better than this show so far. Now I haven't finished the show. I'm going to, but I haven't. But yeah, I think it's not nostalgic clearly, but it is just affection for the other writer. We'll see, because I have neither. I like the Hunter x Hunter writer, but I'm not. He's not like Stephen King or Christopher Nolan or Jonathan Nolan to me, so I can assess this with dispassion. I can assess this objectively. How good is this show? And I'm very intrigued to see how I stack it when we get to the end of it. They've done some very clever things. There's been some very interesting, clever things they've done with the writing that tell me there's a good chance this will be in my top 20 when I get done. Maybe even my top 10. We'll see. Like, it depends on how they stick the landing. Like they're doing no favors with all this Boss Baby shit. Boy, I would like to have less of that. But, I want a Boss Baby free cut. I want to rewatch the series with all that shit cut out. And it wouldn't change the experience at all. I don't think there's a single amount of exposition they've ever said in any of the Boss Baby scenes that you can't understand the story without, because it gets repeated with the other characters. Typically, he's just repeating information, and we know that's true because those scenes don't appear in the manga. They were invented for the show, which means they're basically filler. I bet a Boss Baby free cut of this show would be excellent. We'll see. Anyway, I've been talking for a long time. This is the feedback, so this pretty much wraps up the feedback. Like I said, drop your comments below, and you can it can be comments. You can just make comments. I think romance anime stinks. Maybe somebody can tell me, is Sailor Moon just something I would hate because it's for women, right? Like I saw recently. I'll get into this in my next segment, but I'll just say that. Let's go ahead and take a break, and then I'm going to drink something, nothing hard, and then we'll be back. All right, we're going to introduce a new segment. This won't be a regular segment, but whenever I'm inspired, I will do it. I'm going to call this segment Rebuttals to Shitty Clickbait Articles. So, this is a shitty clickbait article. It's a CBR website. I don't know what that stands for. Comics something, maybe. I don't know. 10 big problems with modern anime today. So, I'm going to summarize. But just, if you Google that title, or if you look at CBR, it'll be there, right? Number 10, too many cliffhanger endings with no follow-up. And I think they're talking about, the series ends abruptly with no promise of closure. I mean, what can you do about that? That happens in live-action shows all the time. There's nothing you can do. Like, if the shit gets canceled, it gets canceled. Sliders ended on a horrible-ass cliffhanger. If it gets canceled, it gets canceled. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. So, I don't know if you can blame anime. I think that happens in every genre, and I don't think that's an anime-specific thing. Number 9, streaming wars impacting accessibility. So, I don't really know much about that, so I'm not going to speak to it. That could be very true. But, basically, there's a lot of places to find this anime, and they're fighting with each other, and so some people can't go to some places to watch it. I will say live action is fragmented, too. I mean, there's a lot of great shows on Apple Plus, but nobody has Apple Plus. So they can't watch the shit. So that's a problem. Number 8, poor adaptations of great manga. Well, anime is almost, the weird thing about anime is it's 100%, or I would say 95% adaptations, right? Like, there's not much original anime not based on some other source material. Like, either you got light novels or you got manga. So, the fact that it's so dependent on adaptation, I think this is just one of the curses that's going to happen. I think it's just, I don't know if there's anything you do about it. It sucks. If you have a really great manga and it doesn't get adapted well, like, I understand the frustration. I would probably say this probably is a problem with anime, simply because anime is so heavily dependent on the adaptation. Almost all of it is adapted. So let's see what examples they use. A big example is the second season of Tokyo Ghoul, whatever the hell that is. Apparently that was adapted very horribly. I would throw in Naruto. There's been a lot of things I've heard. First of all, the pacing's horrible, and they had so much goddamn filler. And then there were just things they didn't adapt well. They butchered character. They butchered one of the 3 big characters. You had Sakura, just butchered, was not who she was, and it's like kind of like how Ron got butchered in the Harry Potter movies. Like, the character on the page is not the character we saw on the screen. Sakura is apparently that way. So I would say that probably this was not a great adaptation for Naruto. I haven't read the manga, so I don't know, but that's probably the case. Overproduction leading to poor animation quality. Here's what's hilarious about this. They show a scene of Wrath fighting Pride, and I just watched this episode like a couple days ago. And apparently the animation was terrible. People have really been bitching about the animation of this fight. I thought it was fine. Like, I mean, of course I haven't read the manga. I mean, it told the story. You have a fight, it told the story, so it didn't, I mean, I didn't need any more than what I saw. You didn't, I mean, it wasn't like there were stutter steps and, you could see through the characters to the background. That would be shitty animation. It's not like they're running and you see the same background just cycling in the background, right? Like, that's so, or the lips aren't or are moving when people are not talking. Like, they got the basics right. It wasn't paper cutouts so you could see the fingers of the people moving them. So for me, it was fine. But I love that they use this as an example when we were just talking about this over on Seven Deadly Sins. So that's funny. Tight production schedules and limited budgets often result in rushed work. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Like, if that happens, that blows. So that's a major problem. Over-reliance on Isekai tropes. I guess I'm just not qualified to speak on this topic. I don't know who the hell that is. I don't know what those tropes are. So I'm skipping that one. Like, I just can't speak. There was one of these that pissed me off. I don't know. Now I'm not seeing it. But we're down to 5. Excessive fan service in inappropriate places. Boy, do I agree with this. I agree so strongly with this. Many new anime employ fan service heavily in ways that feel highly unnecessary. I agree 100%. This tends to happen even in otherwise decent anime with good plots and interesting characters, irritating audiences. Even well-liked, highly respected anime like My Hero Academia are not immune to some degree of fan service. 10-4, good buddy. The problem is not the fan service itself, but the how and when of doing it. No, it's also the fan service itself. Like, by itself, isolated of any context, good or bad, the fan service is still stupid. 12-year-olds don't have large breasts. You're an idiot. So that's just how I feel about it. But anyway, that one I pretty much agree with, although I take it further than they do. Generic protagonists with no growth. Modern leads feel bland and forgettable. Well, that hasn't happened to me, so I can't speak to that, but I'm curious. One of the reasons I wanted to read this, I want to know your opinions. I wanted you people to weigh in on these topics because you know a hell of a lot more about anime than I do. There's a couple of these I wanted to rebut, and I have, but like really, like shit like this. Like, for instance, a modern protagonist would be like Chainsaw Man. Like, I don't feel like he was bland and forgettable. He was crystal clear to me. Jujutsu Kaisen, those characters are vibrant. They blast off the screen. I love those characters. I'm heartbroken when I think one of them's going to die. There's like half a dozen characters in that show that I just absolutely love, even the protagonists. So, but my experience is really limited with modern anime. So this is one I'd really like you to weigh in on. Oversaturation of seasonal releases. This is really stupid. This is one I want to push back on. Too much anime at once dilutes the impact. No, it doesn't. That's idiotic, man. You got to remember, man, back in the day, network TV, you had 4 channels back then, and they would all start their new shows the same couple weeks. Like, it was the first couple weeks in maybe the middle 2 weeks in September back then. Some shows started to push it to October as things just happen. Like, especially the action-heavy shows would start debuting in October. Back in the day that I'm talking about, the second and third week of September, you would have 50 to 60 shows premiering, returning shows and new shows. Nobody had any problem navigating that shit. Nobody had any problem finding new favorites. If shows didn't bring the lumber, they got dropped. But there was never a problem of oversaturation. This is idiotic. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. People will make time to watch shit they like. If you put out 2 good things in a week, they'll make time to watch 2 good things. If you put out 10 good things in a week, they will make time to watch 10 good things. It's just how good is it? Now, people start negotiating. If the number gets high enough, and there are only so many hours in a day, people start negotiating. Okay, these things are better than this. I can wait on this. But that number has to get pretty damn high. Shows it's 22-minute episodes a week. So you can stack up a lot of good shit before it becomes a problem. People need time to be distracted from their shitty ass lives in this sorry ass world. They're looking for anything to distract them. You know? So, any good show that comes out, their eyes are gonna be watching that shit. They're gonna be glued, man. They're gonna be watching. This is number 3. They put this as number 3. Like, there's too many good shows at once. F you. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm glad I remembered like what it was that made me want to read this article in the first place. I do want your feedback. And I am reading this to introduce this topic to you, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. Go read the article yourself. But this is what I wanted to push back on, because this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Oh, there's too much good shit. Dude. You don't know what that talk about. That is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Weak female characters and otherwise complex shows. What's funny about this, they show Karen from Naruto and Boruto. She's the face they show. Boy, is that the truth. Naruto has a lot of weak female characters. Now, they have a lot of strong ones too, especially Boruto. I think that Boruto did a really good job of making strong female characters. Not Karen, but a lot of other characters are strong. Naruto, not so much. You had to go deep into the bench to find a good, strong character. So, that reminds me, I should go back to my Boruto ranking list at some point, where I rank all the characters and what I think about them. I should do that soon. But, yeah, she's the poster child. Weak female characters and otherwise complex shows. Yeah, I can see that being a problem. I agree with that. And finally, number 1, there are fewer and fewer original stories. Well, welcome to the human race. There's only 7 stories that are ever told, and we just keep retelling them over and over again. You're a genius. Good job. You just discovered storytelling. You all are dumb. You're just dumb, man. Like, you know, I don't know who the hell slapped that shit together. They made some good points. They have some good points. They really only had a list of 6 or 7 items. They had to fill it out with 3 of the dumbest takes I've ever seen in my life. But, what do you think? Feel free to leave comments. I know I keep asking for comments, but this is something I really want to hear about. Is this shit as dumb as I think it is? Or maybe I'm missing something. You know, I'm always open to be educated. Alright, well, next topic is going to be, we're up to the anime episode highlight, and this is where I'm putting Cat Soup. It's maybe a bit of a cheat, but like you, we got to put this somewhere. I wanted to talk about it. I had a lot to say. You should definitely go check it out. Go check out Cat Soup. Even if you're not in tier 3 and you can't watch my reaction to it, and if you've never seen it, you need to see it. And I found out after the fact that there is a story being told there, and I just didn't pick up on it. So if you haven't seen Cat Soup, I basically just went over the plot, like what the actual plot is, and then realized I spoiled it for you if you haven't seen it. So I'm recording this after what I said, but I'm going to stick it before what I said. Skip ahead about a minute. So you don't, if you're going to watch, either stop the video and watch it now, or skip ahead about a minute if you don't want to be spoiled on Cat Soup. And then I'll wave my arms or something, and you'll know that it's safe to come back. So that's what we'll do. I'll wave my arms, you'll know it's safe to come back, and then you won't have been spoiled in Cat Soup. Or just go watch it. So one or the other. I realize after the fact, it's like, what's the point of you watching if I'm just going to tell you the plot? So, but if you don't want to watch it, I just told you the plot. So there we go. That's coming now. But my initial reaction, I had what I thought it was talking about, is actually talking about his sister died. He grabbed her, Death was taken away, he grabbed her and ripped her soul in half, then Death took half the soul away, and he put half of it back in her body. That's why she's so messed up. And then most of the movie is him traveling to the underworld to try to get the other half of her soul, which turned out to be a flower, which when he fed it to her, it fixed her. But that doesn't explain what the hell happened at the end when everybody disappeared. So I don't know what that was about. But like, the story actually makes a lot of sense, like once you know it. But just watching the movie, like, I couldn't make heads or tails of that shit. I realize if you haven't seen it, I guess I just spoiled the plot for you. But, yeah, shit. Alright, well, we're back. We're past the spoiler zone. And I'm going to go ahead and get into Cat Soup, and I'll see you on the flip side. Okay, I just finished watching Cat Soup, which was my exclusive video for May for the podcast. It's on tier 3. And you can go check it out over there. Like I said, we'll be doing an exclusive video every month. This month, I had no other idea, so I thought I'd react to this. I don't know if I liked it. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of obscure, inscrutable, and intentionally ambiguous. Hey, let me show you 10 different random things, and you just figure out what the hell it means. I'm not a fan of that. I made a movie that way one time, and I kind of felt dirty afterwards. And I think I grew as a filmmaker. I feel like you need to have definitive answers, even if you don't share every definitive answer with the audience. And sometimes, he may know exactly what everything means. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't, the filmmaker. But I get this idea with David Lynch sometimes. I like David Lynch. I really like his movies. He has never made a boring movie. They're fun. This was not a boring anime. It was fun. This kind of shit's never going to be boring. It's exciting. I like to figure shit out, and I can always come up with a few ideas. But it's not my favorite thing, because I just feel like people are screwing with me, and they're just screwing with me. That's what it feels like. It's like, hey, you do the work. You do my homework for me. I'm going to throw all this shit on the wall. None of it means anything. Do my homework for me. And I was probably influenced by. Remember the song "Rock On" from the '60s? Hey kids, rock and roll, rock on, rock on. Where do we go from here? Which is the way that's clear? That song. The songwriter was being interviewed, and this interviewer asked him a very probing question about the lyrics of the song "Rock On." He says, "So when you said where do we go from here? Which is the way that's clear? Were you talking about teenagers in 1965 having these choices? Do we just support a fascist government? Do we accept the fact that people are being assassinated? Do we get excited about going to the moon when we've got the war in Vietnam? And are you saying, is that what you were talking about when you had that? Like, these two lines of dialogue, these two lines of the song, where do we go from here? Which is the way it's clear, really touched me. So this is the interview. Right? I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically what the interview asked. And so they asked a very probing question. It took about 2 minutes to ask the question. It's very insightful, very probing, very deep. And then the songwriter looks at the interviewer and just says, "Hey, I just put those words together because they rhyme." And what a letdown! Just took all the air out of the interview. Right? It's just, it don't mean shit. And I've never thought about song lyrics the same way again. Like, I used to have so much fun trying to decipher song lyrics and what does this mean? What does that mean? And all this stuff. And since then, like, I don't play that game anymore. I'm not trying to decipher any song lyrics because they're all full of shit. Now, there probably are some deep songwriters out there. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are songwriters, every word means something. And it's all super deep. But I'm never going to play that game again. Like, because it's just, there's so many of them are just full of shit. And I think there were filmmakers who are full of shit. I don't know if David Lynch is full of shit or not. I don't know the man. I never met him. He's dead now. Probably not. He probably knew most of what he was doing, but he was never going to tell you what he meant, and so really it doesn't matter whether he knew it or not. He was never going to tell you. So he still wants you to play the game. He still wants you to do his homework for him. Here, you make sense of this shit. I'm not going to, and I refuse to play that game. I'm not going to do it. Katsu felt that way. I had a couple thoughts. One thought was, kids, the imagination. I talk about this at the end of the reaction, so I won't go too deep here. But kids will have an imagination, and they'll be walking about their day at 5 or 6 years old, and they'll imagine like alien invasions and monsters attacking and all this stuff. And this kind of felt like that. This was maybe the day in the life of a 6-year-old with an active imagination, like I had growing up. And so they're just seeing the whole world through their active imagination. Sitting on a bench, and they imagine it's a boat. They're with their sister, and he's kind of dragging his sister along because she doesn't want to come, or she's being annoying, or he's annoyed at her, or whatever. And then so that's that's one interpretation of the story. Another interpretation was maybe it's some kind of Christianity metaphor or something. Like, I kept getting that feeling while I was watching it, which is wild because only 1% of Japanese are Christians, so that's weird. I go into those two things during my reaction, so I won't go there. One thing I didn't mention in my reaction that I'll talk about here, there was a really interesting moment there in the middle of, probably towards the beginning, during the three-ring circus. And you have the person who's in control of the circus talking. And as he talks, his words create this massive water elephant. and then the water elephant becomes a flood that destroys the whole earth, right? Which is one of the reasons why I think this is a Christian metaphor, because Japan does not have a world flood myth. Christians do, but Japan doesn't. So they weren't. The author, the filmmaker, was not drawing upon Japanese mythology to come up with this world flood myth, right? So that was interesting. But he was speaking words into existence. He said the words like big water elephant or big golden elephant or something like that, and then it appeared, and it was in the middle of the circus. And what it made me think about is magicians, mentalists, circus, three-ring circus performers, and ringmasters and stuff like that will tell you what you're going to see, and then you believe what you see. So the magician will tell you, I'm going to saw this woman in half, and it'll show you the woman sawed in half. And her legs are kicking here, and her body's over here. We know it's a trick, but still, he tells you what you're going to see, and then you see it. That's kind of what that was very clever. I don't know if the filmmaker intended this or not. But a ringmaster, a magician, a mentalist, sometimes even a stand-up comedian can do this. They will tell you what you're going to see, and then you think you see it. You think what they basically, their words get spoken into existence. A magician will tell you, I'm about to do this magic trick, and then you'll think the magic trick happens, even though there is a trick. The word trick is what it is. They're tricking you. I'm going to catch this bullet with my teeth. They'll tell you, I'm going to catch this bullet with my teeth, and then you'll think you see them catching the bullet with the teeth. I really like that. I don't know if the filmmaker intended this. Probably not. But that's what I got out of it. I like the idea of a visual metaphor of somebody speaking something into existence that the audience then experiences. Because there's a huge audience watching a three-ring circus. I got that out of it. I think that's really cool to see a visual metaphor of something I'd never really thought about before, that magicians basically speak reality into existence. Now they have their trick. They're very practiced. They've tried this trick 1,000 times in rehearsal. But really, it's what they say to you that makes you believe what you see more than anything else. The presentation. And mentalists are really good. I know a mentalist. Mentalists are really good at this. So yeah, these are my thoughts for Cat Soup. Like I said, if you want to support me, you can go over to Patreon Tier 3. Check it out. If not, go watch it yourself. You should definitely go watch Cat Soup, because I think is a interesting, I was going to say phenomenal. I don't know about phenomenal. It's definitely an interesting experience. Everybody should watch it at least once. That would be my suggestion. So, okay, so that was wild, wasn't it? At least what I had to say about it was wild. Which, now that I think about it, even what I had to say about it would have been spoilers. So you really should have just watched Cat Soup before you got to this part of the podcast. That's probably would have been the best thing to do. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and get into the main topic. Long versus short series. I already kind of talked about it a little bit. Now, preface, that's all preface. That's American TV. I feel like the problem, you want episodes. Let me put it this way. I believe the best storytelling for a TV series in the action genre, action thriller genre. Now, other kinds of shows like mysteries, or if you just want a serialized show, or if you want an anthology show like Black Mirror or something, this doesn't apply. I'm talking about an ensemble show of 5-6 characters like Buffy, Vampire Diaries, Angel, Stargate SG-1, those kind of shows. Justified, maybe, although it's more of a main character than an ensemble. But I prefer the ensemble. Ensemble action/thriller TV shows are best with a season-long big bad. You introduce the big bad at the beginning of the season. You resolve the big bad at the end of the season. You can also introduce character issues at the beginning of the season. Maybe they're going to get a promotion. They have to decide what they're going to do with the promotion. Maybe they do get a promotion. Maybe they have a breakup, or maybe they get married. Maybe they have a kid, whatever. You start character drama at the beginning of the season. You resolve it at the end of the season. Each season is a complete story, but all the seasons together tell the story of the life of those people during that time period. So the seasons are connected. And there could be a few plot lines that cross over seasons. That's fine. But the majority of the plot lines and the majority of the story will be contained within one season. I think that's the most efficient, best way to tell a story. Buffy did it better than anybody. Teen Wolf did it. Stargate SG-1, I mean, the problem, they were so episode of the week for so long. They followed the Star Trek model for too long, and then finally tried to tell season-long stories, and it was too late in the process, and they had bled most of the original actors, and it just didn't work. But it should have. But Buffy and Angel, but Angel not so much. Angel didn't want to do the season-long big bads, and I think it suffered for it. When they finally did it in season 4, that's my favorite season, was season 4 of Angel, because they had a season-long big bad. That's the way to do it. Buffy did it to perfection, and I don't think anybody's done it better since Buffy. But that's what you need. You need a season-long big bad or a season-long story. Season-long mystery maybe. Veronica Mars did the season-long mystery. They eventually broke it up into 2 mysteries. A 24-episode season would have a 10-episode mystery and then a 14-episode mystery, or a 12-episode mystery and 12-episode mystery. But it organizes your season. It feels like you went on a journey and you concluded the journey in the season. So that's the best way to tell a story. And if you're going to tell that story, it's probably best to tell that story in 13 episodes. You can do it in 10. 10 is pushing it. But it depends on how much story you want to tell. Severance had a 10-episode second season, but they really only had 7 episodes of story. Maybe 8. And they stretched that shit out for 10 episodes. And the season suffered for it. I think if you get below 10 episodes, you're really pushing, because we can't feel connected to the characters. I like Invincible. I don't feel connected to the characters because we don't have any filler episodes. That's the most important part of all this, by the way. You need the breather episodes, or what we would call a filler episode that doesn't involve the main plot of the season. It can be Monster of the Week, but it's still... That's why the Monster of the Week episodes in Buffy were so important. It gets you time to learn who the characters are, to get the character interactions. This is how this person feels about that person. This progresses their feelings. And it doesn't have to be romantic. I know you automatically thought romance when I said that. Buffy and Giles, how they feel about each other. He's a father figure. Her father sucks. He never had any children. So how much paternal instinct does he actually have? Well, we need to figure that out. And so you figure that out in these filler episodes, these breather episodes, when you're not doing the main plot, when everything's hauling ass and you're really, all this exciting shit's happening, and you don't have time for characters to just talk to each other. So if you go down from 20 episodes to... And Buffy had 22 episode seasons. If you go down from 20 to 13... basically, you've cut out all of the character episodes, and you just have story episodes. Now, Severance still did some character episodes, even though they had 10 episodes this season. You can still do it, but man, it feels unsatisfying. When you only have 10 episodes, and you're such a mystery box show like Severance is, it feels, if you take an episode off like they did twice, to focus on a single character. They did this twice. You take 2 out of 10 episodes off in season 2 to focus on single characters, then you feel like you've been robbed of story and mystery solving and information and excitement, because you only get 10 episodes. That's all you get. Same problem with Silo, Silo had the exact same problem. If you had a 13 episode season and you had 2 episodes that focus on characters, you feel a hell of a lot better about that. If you have a 20 episode season and you have 4 episodes that focus on characters alone, you feel even better about it. Because in 20 episodes, you're going to get everything you need. If you want the character focus, you get the character focus. If you want the mythology, you get the mythology. You get it all. Because you have plenty of time to get everything. Even 13. Not so much in 10. Or even 9, like Daredevil, for instance. So, let me see. You had Agatha All Along was 9. WandaVision was 9. I think some of those other Marvel series are 8 or even 6. You're not getting, you're basically, those are just movies, long movies. And you want either a series, you want it to feel like a series, you want it to feel like a movie. You can't have a series that feels like a movie. And that's when you start talking 6 or 8 episodes, that's what you get, right? So really, if we're talking about American long versus short series, for me, the sweet spot would be 13 to 16 episodes. 22 is probably too much, especially in this day and age. Especially if you want quality. Actor schedules are one of the things. Budget can be one of the things. So I can see them going down to 13. That's fine. 13 is the lowest I would want to go. I just think 10 is bad, and below 10 is a disaster. That's just how I see it. Because Hollywood has become convinced that all that matters is the season-long story, whatever that is, action, mystery, whatever. and not the character focus. And characters what matter. The Lost subreddit is still as active today as it was 10 years ago, and the show's been off the air for 20 years. Why is it still so active? Because of characters. The characters stand the test of time. People love the characters. They still want to talk about this show. It's the characters. So, will people still be talking about Fallout after 20 years after it finishes? Probably not. I like Fallout. It was very entertaining. But there was very little character focus there. There was so much plot focus. And it was also separated out over so many different characters, right? So no one character really got a chance to shine as much as they probably should have. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if we're talking about like Severance, I love the characters. And they really talk about some very interesting stuff. But are we going to remember Severance 20 years after it's over? It's too early to tell. We don't know. Silo, probably not. They just don't spend the time on the characters. They spend the time on the story. And season 2 of Silo felt like they took 5 episodes of story and stretched it out to 10 episodes. They're adapting books. So the first season adapted the first half of the first book. The second season adapted the second half of the second book. I don't know how that all worked out, but it just felt really stretched out and poorly paced. And yet, they didn't spend all that extra time on the characters. So, for American television, I prefer medium-sized series. I know that's not really the topic. The topic is long versus short. But let's shift that down to all the things I said to anime. Anime, the long anime series, give you the chance to really explore the characters in a way no other medium can. Because motion pictures with audio and music, to me, is the best way to tell a story. I'm a filmmaker, so I guess I'm biased. But I did start out as a novelist. But I think motion picture, and what I'm saying by that is I'm saying either animation or live action. I don't care. I don't give a shit which one. Animation, live action, whatever. I don't care. Motion pictures with sound effects and music, and the everything's in motion, is the best way to tell a story. You know, so it's the best way to experience the characters. And of all the different ways to tell motion picture stories, anime is the best to me, because it has the time to explore the characters, and they prioritize exploring the characters. We explore character backstories, we explore character relationships, we explore character motivations. Why does a character do this instead of that? Who do they do it for? What are the decisions they make, and why did they make them, and how does that change from how they would have made those decisions a year ago? So for me, long anime series are always going to be the best. Even though I personally prefer to switch to watching shorter series on my Patreon, because I categorized it. I had 4 different categories determined by length of series. You know, here's a short, 10, 13 episodes and less, and then here's 20 to 50, and here's 50 to 100, and over 100, whatever, right? And right now I'm focusing my time on the short series, just because the long series, there's so much mythology to keep track of, and I'm watching 9 shows right now. Gonna be 9. After I start the Fate Zero, I'm gonna be watching 9 different shows. I can't be watching. I've got One Piece and Boruto, which are very mythology heavy, very character heavy. There's 500 characters in each one. I can't watch another 7 that are that long, because I just can't keep track of everything. So I'm doing shorter series there. But I prefer the longer series because we have more time to explore these things. And I like watching filler, because filler, we can explore the characterization. If the filler is written by people who give a shit about characterization. If it's not, it's useless. But like Naruto, the filler just didn't seem like it was written by people who gave a shit about characterization. It didn't feel like the same characters, so it was pointless to watch. One Piece, for the most part, feels like the same characters. So I enjoy that. Yeah, I'm glad I watched the filler, because I'd already be done with the series if I hadn't watched the filler. So I prefer the long series because we can explore these things. The short series, to me, sometimes feel like they fizzle out. There's only a couple. We'll say medium-sized series. We're talking 50 to 100. Okay, 50 to 100 episodes, medium-sized series. There's only one medium-sized series I can say truly stuck the landing, and that would be Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, or whatever it's called. They stuck the landing. They resolved it in a very satisfying way, and it felt like one coherent story being told over about 65 episodes. It really worked. Monster fizzled out. Attack on Titan fizzled out. What else have I watched in that category? Great Teacher of Senko. I don't remember the exact length of that, but that kind of fizzled out, and they didn't even tell like half the manga or something like that, so they just ran out of episodes. They just lost their funding and got canceled or something. I don't know. So most of those shows fizzled out. The shorter shows, the 26 episode shows, Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo were only ever intended to be that length, and they're both mostly Monster of the Week type shows. Heavy focus on characterization, very little focus on overall season-long mythology. So they're fine, right? They're just great adventures, and you love the characters, and you enjoy spending time with the characters, and then you're done. Same with Unlimited Blade Works, same kind of thing. That they told one story, but it basically was just that. It was one story, so that worked out really well. But they're shorter. I think below 50, you can stick the landing. You almost have to stick the landing because basically you're just telling one story, and there's very little pit stops and side avenues and side quests and all this stuff. You're very focused on just the main story. If you have less than 50 episodes, typically you know what you're doing. Every now and then one of these shows will just run out of money and stop talking, and then they're done, and those shows suck. But they know what they're doing, and they're adapting one story that just happens to be of such a length that you can do it in less than 50 episodes. They're going to stick the landing because I assume the original manga stuff stuck the landing, or they wouldn't be adapting it. So those are going to work. You have a problem when you're adapting the longer ones because then you have the odd jobs and side quests and stuff, and in the filler or whatever. And so far, the shows that have gone 50 to 100, like I said, I've only had one that I remember that stuck the landing. So those are problems. So to me, you have to be really short or really long. Naruto, I feel like stuck the landing. I really enjoyed it. I love how it ended. And I love the overall story. It had its problems. It had definite pacing problems. And it had too much goddamn filler. And the filler sucked. But Naruto was great. The overall story. Both, the original and the shipping in. Boruto so far is great, but some results, I haven't finished it. So I don't know what to say there. Steins Gate is another example of a show that was 24 episodes. Stuck the landing. Perfect storytelling, because they have one short story and they just adapted it and they nailed it. So for me, I think where I come down on this is long good, although I haven't, the only long series over 100 that I have finished that I can remember is Naruto, right? So I don't know that I'm an expert in this. I haven't finished One Piece, and One Piece hasn't finished. I haven't finished Bleach. I haven't finished JoJo, and I haven't finished Seven Deadly Sins. So I don't know. Jujutsu Kaisen's ongoing, so I've seen 2 seasons of that, but that's not finished. So the long series I finished was good and worth it and worth the journey. And we'll say under 30. The under 30 episode series I finished have all been excellent. I've never seen a bad one as far as I can remember. I didn't finish Death Note. But as far as I can remember, I never saw a bad one, so those are great. So you really are just sitting here at the medium-length series of the ones that suck, in my experience. Those seem to be the hardest to pull off. Now, my sample size is smaller. But this is where I come down to. So I think either go really long or go short or go home. Now, My Hero Academia hasn't finished. I think that qualifies as a long series. That should be over 100. That's 7 seasons of 20 episodes? That's definitely over 100. We'll see how that sticks to landing. That'll be interesting. That's coming back soon, I think. So we'll see how that sticks to landing. But Fate Zero, let me check this real quick. Looks like there's 5 seasons, each of which has about 13 episodes. So that's going to end up being in the middle category, the middling category. So it's going to be interesting to see, do they stick to landing? So that's going to be interesting. So we'll find out that pretty soon, because I'm going to start that on Sunday. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think. But that's where I come down in my experience. I think you need to either be really long so you can explore everything and you have time to recover from any story cul-de-sacs you went down that didn't work out. And you have time to resolve everything. The problem with Monster, it just didn't feel resolved. the problem with Attack on Titan, it could just be a function of the fact there was so much time that they divided the final season up like 4 different ways. It took forever in between each way. That felt like a mistake, and just you're waiting so long you can't get back into the rhythm of the story. Maybe if you binge it from the beginning all the way to the end, maybe it's better. I don't know. But I think you just meander. You have a problem. So keep it really short or keep it really long is my experience, which I think is going to be a weird take, but that's where I'm at. So, all right, well, that's where we are with the main topic. I'd love to hear what you think about that. And now I'm going to go into the other pre-recorded segment, which is the Justice League. This is the other animation category. We're talking about Justice League. So I'll see you on the other side of that. As I record this, I'm about to watch the final 5 episodes of Justice League Unlimited, which is a 3-season sequel series to Justice League, which was 2 seasons. Altogether, I think there was like 80, 85, maybe almost 90 episodes. It's a really good series. I really enjoyed it. It is absolutely not what I thought it was going to be. I started this whole journey talking about how basically what I knew about the DC heroes, because I was always a Marvel fan growing up. I love Superman and I love Batman, but just the movies. I never read the comics. And there was only 5 movies or something like that. So very limited exposure. But I'd actually read some Marvel comics. I had some Spider-Man comics and stuff like that. I think a few X-Men, stuff like that, And like I explained over there at the beginning of that journey, I thought they were less relatable than Marvel heroes. Because DC heroes, at least the top echelon, are gods. Superman is a god, right? He invulnerable. Then you have Martian Manhunter, and then you have Green Lantern. The 3 of them, any one of those 3 could probably solo the entire Avengers. They're just so much more powerful, which makes them unrelatable. Whereas, it also, there just wasn't as much infighting. And this is all just, secondhand smoke, right? I don't have an intimate knowledge of the comics of either side. But it seemed like there was less infighting. And I know that George R. R. Martin used to talk about how the Fantastic Four was the first time he saw heroes bickering with each other. And it was a revelation to him. Wait a minute. You can have heroes who bicker and don't get along, but then they come together and fight the enemy when they have to. Because everybody gets along, on all the other comic books. So, shit like that. So my perceptions are colored through other people. Filtered through other people. But essentially, it was Marvel's just more relatable. And like I said, I read Peter Parker, and he's a teenage boy trying to deal with shit. And his powers are basically a metaphor for puberty and becoming an adult and all that stuff, Daredevil, he has he can still see even though he's blind, with his echolocation or whatever. But other than that, he's just a relatable, down-to-earth kind of hero. Who else did I follow? I did like the Incredible Hulk. Kind of a god, but, through transformation, more of a Jekyll and Hyde situation. Literally, it's just Jekyll and Hyde retold. So, anyway, my point is, I always felt like Marvel was relatable, so I went into Justice League. Can these characters be relatable to me? Will they still feel unrelatable? And I had a little chart that I was going to do, and after each batch of episodes, I was going to update the chart. Are these people relatable or not? Actually, I think I started doing that with the movies, even before we got to Justice League. But with Justice League, I found out that it's not about the individual characters. It's about the ensemble. And it's not about their alter egos. Rarely do we delve into the alter egos. Looking back, we've seen Bruce Wayne 3 or 4 times, maybe. I don't know that we've ever seen Clark Kent. Maybe a couple times. One time it was... No, it was when I was watching the Superman animated series. Clark Kent was on a date with Lois. And so that wasn't even Justice League. So... we didn't get the alter ego, so my whole idea of trying to make the characters more relatable was dead on arrival, because that's not what Justice League was about. Justice League was about the ensemble. So that's how I started the journey. And here I am at the end of the journey. And it's kind of interesting that, the observations I have, they had production issues. They were kind of finding their way, in the first season. I really enjoyed it. A lot of the individual episodes are better. I do think... overall, they shouldn't have stuck to, we're only going to do 2-parters, or we're only going to do single episodes. They should have mixed and matched from the beginning. First 2 seasons were almost all two-parters. Every now and then be a three-parter. I think they had like 1 or 2 standalone episodes. And then ever since then, Justice League Unlimited has been almost all standalone episodes. I think maybe they've had 1 two-parter. I'm not even sure that they've even had 1. So, like, why is it, all or nothing? Why is it one or the other? Because I feel like a lot of these stories could have been served better with a two-parter. And some of the two-parters in the first 2 seasons would have been better served just being one-parter. They should have just had the flexibility. We can do it either way. And I think probably syndication was a big reason why they didn't want to do the two-parters. You have network pressures. They want to show 1 episode in syndication per day, and people, aren't going to, watch it 2 days in a row, most likely. They want to see a single episode, 1 single serving, because people are jumping in and jumping out. It's not appointment television and syndication 5:30 in the morning or whatever the local syndication time would be. That's how they look at it. Syndication is single serving. So there was a barrier to entry when it came to the two-parters. Most likely, the only reason they got Justice Unlimited is they said, we'll stop doing two-parters, we'll do single servings for syndication purposes. Which also, back then, the syndication minimum was 85 episodes. They wanted 100. You could have a better rotation with 100, but for special series, they would do 85. So, for instance, Sliders' 5th season only got renewed so they could go into syndication. A lot of times that'll happen. Like, if you get to season 3 or 4, they will renew you for 1 more season for the number of episodes required to get up to syndication levels. You get a hell of a lot more money if you get to 100. So, I suspect the 3rd and final season of Justice League Unlimited was so they could syndicate the both series together. Because I think that gets them past the 85. Just doing the numbers in my head. A little bit of cocktail napkin math, right? But yeah, so as I say this, I think they should have done two-parters and one-parters indiscriminately, but I think there were probably studio and network forces when they were looking with an eye towards syndication that kind of prevented that from happening. So there's nothing you can do as a showrunner. Like, if they tell you this is what we're doing, that's what you're doing. But I do think it would have been better, just aesthetically from a storytelling point of view, if you could do both indiscriminately, whichever one serves the story better. Other general thoughts, speaking of barrier to entry, I think both series did a terrible job of setting up obscure characters. They just throw them at you and expect you to know who the hell these people are. I still don't know who the Vigilante is, a cowboy guy who got shiny knight. Every now and then somebody will say something in the line of dialogue. I know about Stargirl only because I've seen the live action series, which came out way after this. I wouldn't know who the hell Stargirl is or what her powers are. Like, and that's the same with all these people. And no, you don't need an origin story for every one of these 100 different people we've had, take the limelight. But at the same time, you're throwing all these people at you. We don't even know their names. We don't know their powers. We don't know their vulnerabilities, their weaknesses. We don't know the character interactions with other people. We don't know who their enemies are. Like, has Stargirl ever fought Lizard Boy? Did he kill her uncle or something? Like, there's all this shit that can add to the story and add to the experience that they just completely brush over. I think these series are made for people to read the comics. I think that, they expect to throw Stargirl in the background, and you've read the comics and you know who that is, and all these other people. And I just, I think that's a flaw. And I can't imagine a series doing that these days. Back then, superhero shows were considered fringe and were considered niche, and the only people who watch them were people who read superhero comics. Nowadays, shows are designed to be as broad as possible to appeal to as many people as possible. And also, nerds have been desegregated. Nerds were so segregated in the 90s when this shit came out. So they felt like, maybe every now and then a nerd thing would break containment, like Batman became super popular, and so even non-nerds like Batman. But you have Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were the 3 that had gotten TV series or movies in the 70s and 80s, right? So people knew who those people were. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Not everybody knew who Aquaman was. If they did, it was because of the jokes about him being cheesy. And that's it. There was no cyborg TV series or movie in the 70s or 80s to introduce him to the mainstream. You just had Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. Nobody knows who. So those are the three that broke containment. And you notice two of those three got their own animated series in the same universe. So I think there's a barrier to entry to this show, and I think if I was just watching this on my own, and because I've had a lot of helpful comments, especially from Brienne and Alice, just describing in detail such wonderful comments. Way too long to read in any of my openings or anything like that. Just talking about who the question mark is. Somebody I found really fascinating, had never heard of, and wanted to know more. And they apparently have done very little with this character, but I love this character. I would love a movie or And there's so many of these characters like this, especially with the villains. The villains are obscure as hell, man. You spend some of your time thinking, and see, the problem with this is you want your audience engaged in what's happening. You don't want your audience thinking, hey, what happened to the suitcase? Hey, who is that character in the background? Hey, why did it change from night to day? Like, in editing, in writing especially, but especially in editing, you're trying to remove any distractions from the audience. Now, if they become fixated on something stupid, like we sometimes see with reactors do, a reactor become fixated on the lamp and miss the dialogue. I've been a victim of that as much as anybody. There's nothing the filmmaker can do about that. But you want to remove the obvious distractions, like, who the hell is this? Or, what happened to the suitcase? That's why they'll throw a line of dialogue here and there, right? So, I just think it's to the detriment of the series. Like, basically, it reminds me of the Harry Potter movies where they expect you to, going into it, they expect you to have read the book, so they don't explain everything. And that's the same thing here. And like I said, I think it's a product of the times. I don't particularly like the way movies have dumbed everything down and tried to appeal to the broadest audience possible. But especially with Justice League Unlimited, they bring in literally, no exaggeration, at least 100 new characters. Not all of them get their own episode, but there's at least 100 characters like they're either in the background and every now and then get a line of dialogue or become part of a mission for an episode or two. Just so many characters. Who the hell are these people, right? So that's probably the biggest problem I'd have with this series. I like it overall, but going into these final 5 episodes, I just wanted to put my thoughts out there before I react to the final 5 episodes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch them, and then I'll come back here and just put a button on this. And as I'm sure in the future I will, when I intro this segment, I'll talk about this as my, other animation segment for this podcast. It's weird that I'm doing 2 pre-recorded segments. That's not really the plan, but like if I'm ever in a situation where it's like I'm not recording the podcast for over a week, these thoughts wouldn't be as collated. They wouldn't be as coherent and as complete as in a week from now as they are right now. So that's why I'm pre-recording it. This won't become a regular feature unless I do a lot of shit way ahead of before I'm going to record the podcast. So it just so happens this particular podcast has 2 pre-recorded segments. But, yeah, it is what it is. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and react to those now, and then I will come back here with my final thoughts. So, I just finished recording my reaction to episode 13 of Season 3 that finished my journey through Justice League Unlimited and the entire Justice League series. And so, I will synopsize really quick my impressions of the season-long story arc. I ended up giving it a B-. It was kind of goofy in places. And just the motivations didn't make any sense. There was a lot of logical inconsistencies. And I did kind of write it off as like, it's intended for a younger audience and not to be patronizing. I'm not going to repeat everything I said over the other reaction, but not to be patronizing. But that just means you've consumed 10,000 fewer hours of TV than I have. So when you're 10 to 14 or 15, you just haven't been on Earth long enough to watch enough TV. So, and the writers know this. And so they're going to gear things towards you knowing that you're less experienced in watching shit. So it's going to be some things will be dumbed down. Some motivation will not be explored. Some things won't be deconstructed. Some things will be ignored. And they're going to assume you won't notice. And you probably won't because you haven't seen enough TV. As an older viewer, I had problems with a lot of that stuff. And so a lot of it's goofy. But the finale really kind of brought it home. And it shows me again that a good finale can save a bad season. Now, this was not a bad season. But Blind Spot, was it Blind Spot? Let me look that up. I don't want to get the show wrong. It was Blind Spot. Blind Spot had a incredibly, almost perfect season 1. Its first season was almost perfect. Second season was good. Third season was okay. Fourth season was bad. Fifth season was trash. Terrible. I forced myself to finish it. And then the series finale was one of the best episodes of any TV show I've ever seen in my life. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. The season finale, the series finale of a bad season, a really bad season, the series finale was incredible. One of the best things I've ever seen. And it has revised my opinion of the entire series. Like, I can now recommend the series to people, even if they have trouble getting through seasons 4 and 5. I'll tell them, look, man, stick it out to the end, and it is worth it. That final episode is absolutely incredible. Just blows you away, right? So, a good series finale can save even a bad season. This was a great series finale that saved a mediocre season. Which, they went to serialized storytelling, and maybe that was a mistake, even though I prefer serialized storytelling. I'm not big on the anthology monster of the week being the whole premise of the series. Just not as into it. Like, once you get into a story, it's over. Once you get into a character, they're on to somebody else. It's kind of hard. This season, they made more of an attempt to follow up on things, even if it was a few episodes later. Like the Huntress and Question Mark was the biggest running situation. And then they had Green Lantern. And I guess they didn't really ever, now that I think about it, I didn't think about that when I was doing the reaction. They kind of resolved the Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Vixen love triangle, but not really. Because he says that in the future he was told he had a child with Hawkgirl, even though he's currently with Vixen. And he said he's going to stay with Vixen. But then, in telling Hawkgirl, she went to Batman and wanted to find out more about the kid. What the hell, right? What's that all about? So that kind of leaves the whole thing unresolved. They kind of resolved it. You can assume he just stays with Vixen, but it's not really resolved. That didn't get addressed here. It felt like they knew they weren't getting another season, but they still left some things like that dangling. Weird, right? Weird. But overall, I think it was a well done entry. We have all the different movies. We have all the different live action series. We have all the different animated series. Now, I haven't seen most of them. I've only seen Justice League when it comes to animated series. And then whatever the hell that Super Friends thing was on Saturday mornings in the 80s, I barely remember it. I know I watched it all, but I barely remember any of it. Whatever the hell that was. But if I was to if we forget about animation versus live action and just talk about TV series, this universe, this 5 seasons versus the Arrowverse. Now, the Arrowverse was much more content. And then I'm going to be watching Batman next. So, I'll have more. Maybe I can revisit this conversation in a year. Batman's got a lot of episodes. But maybe I can revisit this. But, if I stack this up against the Arrowverse, it holds up. I'm not going to say I would put this above the Arrowverse. It holds up. It's in the conversation for being better than the Arrowverse. I'm not prepared. I haven't seen enough of it to say it's better than the Arrowverse. It's in the conversation, which is not something I would have said before getting into this. I'd be like, oh, come on, man. And the Arrowverse is intended for an older audience. It's intended for 18 to 25, probably. I would say, yeah, definitely 18 to 25. Younger people can watch and enjoy it, but like it's 18 to 25 was the intended demographic. So it stacks up. I gotta say, looking at the 5 seasons in totality, what I said earlier before I watched these final episodes still stands. I mean, there's continuity lockout even in these 5 episodes I watched. Who the hell is the Corpse Gentleman, and who is Shadow Thief, and who are some of these other people? Who's this dude that turned into Dragon? Oh wait, that was Martian Manhunter. And why is Martian Manhunter fucking some old woman? Like, dude, come on, man. We just had our lunch. I'm a hater. What can I say? I'm a hater, man. So, I don't know, man. I will just say this. It was well worth the journey. I'm glad I did. It's something I would have never watched on my own. I'm glad I did watch it. I'm looking forward to watching more. And I guess for now, for this podcast, the purposes of this podcast, I could just say, saying that it stacks up to the Arrowverse is high compliment. People shit on the Arrowverse. You find some of it's really bad. Some of it's really good. So when you look at that in totality and you compare, you say, is this in the conversation or not? That's a compliment. So that's how I take that. So, yeah. This is fun. I'll try to do more of this because, like, if I was recording this is going to end up being at least 15 minutes long. If I was recording this in a week for the podcast at the same time I record the rest of the podcast, I would have remembered half the shit I wanted to say. So I'm glad I was able to get all this off my chest. So, anyway, back to the podcast. So those are my thoughts on Justice League. Now, let's get to my hot take. Anime has a goddamn age problem, especially when it comes to girls. Because they can't keep consistent. First of all, how old are any of these effing people? You know, we got isn't Joe Tora in this? This is a JoJo, by the way. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The guy in the left, the guy on the right there, his name is Joe Tora. Isn't he supposed to be like 15 or some shit? Like, I don't know. Maybe Joseph Joestar might have supposed to have been 15 when we originally saw him. He's the guy on the left. He's really old now, but back when we saw him originally, one of these guys was supposed to be 15, be looking 25, 30. Like, they have an age problem. Like, people don't look their damn age. And I don't understand why that's such a problem. Artists should know what people look like. And they should be able to accurately draw people. And typically, like, some of the cues you get are the size, the physical size. I understand Japanese people are smaller physically. Just height, weight, smaller than other cultures. It's just a product of their diet and, you know, where they live and all that shit. And it's just a cultural thing. You still can get 6 foot tall Japanese people. They had them in the Marines in World War II. I know that was a fact. They get the tallest Japanese there. But they tend to trend a little smaller. But I don't know, man. Like, they just have an age problem. Like, I can never figure out the age of people, but especially the girls. I'm going to show you 2 examples here I've pulled out of some of these anime I've been watching recently. This is the most egregious example I've ever seen. Okay, here's this female character. This is an important aspect of this thing. They call her a kid. She is called a kid. So maybe she's a little person. You know, I know the word midget isn't used anymore, but she could be like a little person. That's possible. But they call her a kid. And she doesn't have any of the other physical characteristics of little people, where, you know, little people look adult in the face. They just don't physically look adult. Like, you know, so they don't have, she doesn't have that. She looks physically like a child here. Look, you can see the smallness there. All right, well, let's look at it a little bit, watch a little bit of this with me. And the dialogue doesn't matter. I'm not using any audio. But hopefully this doesn't get blocked just for the footage. But okay, so you see here that, first of all, she's sticking her tongue out because she don't like the other guy. They've already had interactions. She's sticking her tongue out, a very childish thing to do. When I was watching this at first, I figured she's probably about 10 years old, maybe 11, could be 12, could possibly be 12. I don't think any older than 12 is likely, but she's sticking her tongue out, so that makes me think more like 10, you know, something like that. But she jumps off the boat into his arms, and you see how she looks physically with this man. Now, I did look up his canonical dimensions, Joseph Joestar. Joseph Joestar's canonical dimensions are 6'5", probably is close to 300 pounds. He might be like 260. He's basically built like an NFL player. You know, if he was a quarterback, he'd be 6 foot 230. If he was a linebacker, he'd be 6 foot. He has about a linebacker physique. He'd be 6 foot 260, something like that. So he's a large man, and that does make a difference for how small she looks in his arms. But she still looks like a 10 to 12 year old. Okay, so we've got that going on. Sticking her tongue out makes her look younger. You know, they have kind of like a bratty personality. Okay, now, here's the important part. You saw this, right? You saw him come up. Here he is. Now, he is 6'5", but you saw him come up to her. And he has to get down on his knees to be at her level. That's how much bigger this man is than her. Okay, So I prepared a graphic here. He's 6'5", and they cut the top of his head off, but the top of his head is 6'5". Typically, on an average person, right here where the nipples are, as they stand up straight, and this is where I got him standing up straight, where the nipples are is 73% of their total height. So 73% of 6'5" is 4'6". Now you see his nipples are above her head. So she is clearly, this is an estimation. This is all best I can do is estimate. She's probably 4 foot is that only 4 inches down from her nipples? Probably not. It's probably more like 6 inches, maybe even 8 inches from the top of his nipples to the top of her head. But I'm generous. I'm saying that maybe it's only 4 inches. If we give him every benefit of the doubt, and maybe he's a little bit, his nipples are a little bit lower or whatever, or a little bit higher, whatever it be. This is just an average percentage of what your total height is, but he is 6'5". She can't be more than about 4'2". The average woman in most countries is 5'3". I'm assuming the average woman in Japan will call it 5 foot. So clearly, this is not an adult woman. She's not a fully developed woman. She's still a girl. She's still growing. Unless she is, like I said, a little person, we don't have any evidence of that. They call her a kid. So she's a little girl. She's 4'2". She's probably going to grow another 8 to 12 inches from where she is right now, which means she's not 17. She's not 18. She's not 19. She's not even 15, probably 14. Most likely, she's around 10 to 12. So this is the clearest example of scale that we get in all these episodes I saw. You saw her jump in his arms, but clearly she's standing up, he's standing up, she's only about 4'2". I mean, that's obvious. Okay, so what do they do in the next scene? This is the same episode, by the way. They got her taking a shower. Already the silhouette, once I saw the silhouette, I was like, what the hell are you doing? This is not the level of development for a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, maybe even 16 or 18. And by the way, her ethnicity doesn't seem to be Japanese. We're talking about Japanese. But these are world globe-trotting type people. They go all over the world. Not everybody's from Japan. She's black. She's clearly not from Japan. So her average size is going to be even bigger when she's an adult. Her culture probably trends to 5'3" being the average female size. She's 4'2". I just realized that. Like, she's not even Japanese, so we can't even use the Japanese standards. But look at this physique. This is a grown-ass woman's physique. This is a grown-ass woman, man. Like, it's ridiculous. It's outrageous. Like, nothing we saw of her in the clothes looked like this. But now they're going to do a fan service of a clearly underage person. But I don't even care about the underage part at this point. I'm talking about the physical differences. Like, throw age out the window. Let's say she is 18. She's 18, but she's 4'2", and you didn't see any, fat badonkadonk or fat breasts in the clothing we saw. Like what we saw just now, we saw her in profile. She was straight up and down, essentially. You weren't seeing any of this shit. Takes her clothes off in the shower, all of a sudden she turns into Beyonce. What the hell, man? And then, of course, she's going to be attacked. But we've got a couple other shots here. So this is a good shot. You see the fat ass. Like, it's just does not look like, these do not look like the same characters. Another shot, just more of the same, None of these look like, all these look like a grown-ass woman. It's such a bizarre juxtaposition. In every other scene we see her in, she looks like a little girl. That scene, she's looking like a grown-ass woman. So I just think that is very egregious. It's ridiculous. It's fan service. Doesn't make any sense. And it highlights one of the biggest problems. They do not have any ability in anime to accurately depict what people under 18 look like, what under 14 look like. We got 12-year-olds sitting around here looking like Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, man. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I know we got fan service, but we could easily just have the fan service be secondary, tertiary characters, man. Like, if you got main characters that are a specific age, I don't know why they have to be 12 anyway. You can make them any age for the most part. Sometimes you want to give them challenges where it's like it makes more sense if they're 12 than if they're 18. Like, I get that. Like, why couldn't they just leave at the home? Well, if they're 18, they can. So some specific stories have specific reasons. A lot of times I don't know, other than your target audience being the same age, why these people need to be so goddamn young. And I've had this problem from the beginning of watching anime. Gon and Killua were 12. Well, why was that necessary? Because your audience is 12. So, that makes sense. But I don't know. Now, speaking of other anime, this is not as egregious of an example because we never see her like in a shower situation. But this is another character who is presented and I believe was about 10 years old. Okay, so just judge for yourself. How old does this person look? First of all, first shot. Now, she does have a timid attitude, and some people just have timid personalities. But if you look at her, the woman in front of her is 17, and the woman to the left is in her 30s. So this is a good mix of ages, and sizes with appropriate ages. Although I believe all characters in this particular episode are Japanese. It's not a globetrotting situation. They're not different ethnicities. These are all Japanese women. And so Japanese women do trend smaller. I understand that. But if you look at them compared to each other, indeterminate age here, judge for yourself how old you think that person is. 17, 33, 35. So that's what we're working with. Here they are walking. Now you can see, we don't know how tall the 17-year-old. Although I think I could probably look that up. Let me do that real quick. I forgot to do that. Okay, so they're saying she's 168 centimeters, 5'6". So the one on the right is 5'6". And she's basically a head taller than the character of the indeterminate age. So let's look at that. Okay, so we're saying the average head height, I looked up the average head height of the woman, 9 inches from here to here. So a typical woman, basically, their head height is going to be 14% of their entire height, and she's 66 inches. So you times that by 14%, and you come up with 9 inches. So basically, she's 9 inches taller than the other character, because you can see here, it looks like she's about a full head taller. Maybe a little bit less. Maybe it's only 7 inches. That case, the other character is 4'10", 4'11". She's 5'6". I think that's a fair. We'll see some other shots maybe where closer we can see is she fully a head higher. Let's check it out. But I think that's fair. She might not be actually okay. Not actually. It looks like her mouth is more at the head than the bottom of her chin. So it's more the mouth. So we're gonna have to say 6 to 7 inches. So basically, the woman of indeterminate age is 4'11" or 5 foot even. So that could be the average size for a Japanese woman. I think Mira, who's on the right, is actually tall for a Japanese woman. So so she, like, maybe it's just comparatively speaking. I probably would have thought that Mira would be 5'3", so that would put this other girl at 4'8". I didn't realize Mira was that tall, was 5'6", until I just looked it up. So maybe when I'm watching this, if I'm thinking the girl on the right is 5 foot or 5'3", that makes the other girl way smaller than she actually is, because the girl on the right is 5'6". But still, she's about. So we're talking about somebody who's about 4'11", 5 feet tall, even. So how old do you have to be to reach that height? Typically, probably 14. You could say maybe 14. I estimated she was 10 to 12. I was making jokes about her being 10. Simply because of her attitude, her personality, her soft-spoken ways, and she's so much smaller, height and weight, than everybody else in the shots. But that could be just a wrong perception. So, all right. Well, so like I said, this is not as egregious of an example as the first example. So then you see this, and she definitely looks if you look at the straight-on shots with the two of them, the one on the left just looks so much smaller. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, first of all, like, you're kind of confused just because she was doing things like she was going to travel by herself If she's 10, that makes no goddamn sense. If she's 14, it makes more sense. We've got 12 and 14-year-olds going out on ninja missions, for God's sake. If she's even older, then, it's like 15, 16, 17, then it's perfectly natural. It makes, there's no problem at all. So we're wasting time in the story trying to figure out. I don't know why people just don't say what age they are. Hi, I'm so and so. I think her name is Tatsuma. I'm 17. That's not an unusual thing to do when you first meet someone. A lot of times it'll be the first question, how old are you? You may not ask that if the person is obviously between 20 and 40. You may not ask that question. But people who look younger than 20, I don't think that's an off the board, out of the way question. They just never do it in anime. You always just have to guess, how old is this person? Like, what the hell? So that's a problem in and of itself. If we're wasting time trying to figure out how old somebody is or making assumptions about how old somebody is, we're missing parts of the story. Because we should be focused on what's happening in the story, not think about anything else. That's why you give information in stories. So the audience isn't trying to guess what the hell's going on. They can focus on the actual story. So that's a problem. But also it's a problem because it can change the complexion of how the characters are with each other. Take this scene right here. I know there's no audio, but just look at this scene. Two people sitting there in a hot springs, okay? Now, if she's 10 or 12 and the other one is 17, all you're seeing is two people in a hot tub. And that's it. And they're both naked. They made it a point of saying they're both asshole naked. But you got a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old. They're just two people in a hot tub. That's all it is. There's nothing else there. We don't know the orientation of anybody. Even if you assume the one on the left is gay or bisexual, you're not going to assume any kind of shipping crap because one is 10 or 12 and the other one's 17. So it's not even going to cross your mind. You're not thinking about it. If you know how old she is, because apparently canonically she's I don't know exactly, but fans are shipping these two characters. Fans think there's something romantic with these two characters because they're buck-ass naked and are this close to each other in the hot springs. In the manga, apparently they were even closer. They had them super close together, almost touching in these big-ass hot springs. So fans ship them. They have a shipping name and everything. And it's not been determined what her sexuality is. So the people are assuming she's at least bisexual, maybe gay. I don't know. But you're not thinking that if she's 10 or 12. You're only thinking that if she's 15, 16, or 17. It's not been established. I actually tried to look up what her age was. And nobody knows how old she is. So for all we know, I could be right and she's only 12. And the fans are just crazy. And fans will ship anybody who has a nice conversation with anybody. They don't care. Fans are going to ship. Man, that's what they do. But the buck-ass naked, they're this close to each other, even closer in the manga, then your people are going to make assumptions. But this was, when somebody mentioned this, after I'd watched all these episodes, I was done with this story arc, somebody mentioned they're shipping, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? She's 12. What the hell? And that was my first indication people thought she was older than 12. Because of how she looks and her height. This anime has an age problem and a physical depiction problem. This is my hot take. I don't even think it's that hard to take. I think it should be common knowledge. We go from fan service to the two examples I've given here to two concrete examples I've given here. It's a problem. And it's something that I would like to see get addressed. I doubt it ever will. And a lot of these shows are over and done with, so they won't get addressed anyway. But I'm just tired of not knowing how the hell old these people are and what the relationships are and how that affects what the relationships are. And it can affect the plot and everything else. Because at the end she wanders off by herself, and everybody's cool with it, and nobody questions it. And I was making so many jokes about that, about her being 10 years old. She's probably going to die or get taken advantage of, and she's gullible anyway at 15 or 17 or whatever she is. Imagine how gullible she'd be at 10 or 12. So I was making all these jokes about how everybody else is a piece of shit for not caring about it. Well, I'm wasting all that time when apparently canonically she's older, although nobody knows how old because it's not been stated anywhere how old she is. So I don't know. That's the problem. That's my hot take. That's the problem I have with it. I'd love to know what you think, but these are two cases, especially the first case, is just there's no defending that. What we saw in that JoJo episode, there's no defense for that. That is outrageous. It's ridiculous. Pure fan service. Make up your goddamn mind. How big and how old is she? Make up your damn mind. Of course, JoJo's a crazy series anyway, so they're not going to make up their mind. They don't, they're crazy. They're just stark raving mad. All right, well, let's get to the portion of the podcast where we talk about ranking current series I'm watching. So, Right now I'm watching 8 shows, and number 8 is JoJo right now. Right now JoJo is the least enjoyable show I'm watching because they're just doing some things in the 2 most recent episodes. I'm going to be exporting them the same time I export this, so they're about to hit the channel soon in a couple of minutes. And they just, man, there's just pacing issues. There's characters standing around talking. There's characters making decisions don't make no damn sense and jeopardizing other people's lives and getting people killed. Nobody calls them out on it. There's no pushback. So I don't know, man. Like, it's just I'm just not enjoying it right now, and hopefully that changes. We're getting close to the end of the season, I think. Well, actually, no. I think we're almost halfway through the season. I think it's a 26 episode season, and I just finished episode 11. So I guess we're not halfway through. Yeah, there's 24 episodes. I just finished 11, so I'm not even halfway through. But I am expecting it to pick up. We're getting closer to the big bad, and it should be fine. Yu Yu is number 7. It's fine. Again, there's certain things that they're doing in the show that annoy me with the roadblocks and the cheating and emphasizing characters betting on the results of these things, and we don't care. And even the show didn't care because they quickly killed that guy off, but he got so much damn screen time. What the hell is the point of all that? Like, so the pacing is a little weird. And keep in mind, I don't hate any of these shows. Number 8 here might be my favorite show if I was watching other stuff. So if I was watching 7 other different anime, JoJo might be my favorite. I don't hate any of these. But somebody's got to be at the top and somebody's got to be at the bottom. These are Yu Yu's at the bottom, except for JoJo. JoJo's at the very bottom. Number 6, Bleach. No real problem with it. It's just there's just been too many training scenes lately. In the training scenes, people have these long monologues, and it's just getting a little old. And I even asked the question, "Who is this for?" Like, we're not going to train to become ninjas. Do we really need to know every single iota, grunion bit, every ounce of mythology and how to fight? Do we need all this, or can we just? In Yu Yu, I would say this for him. He went away to train for 6 months, and he just came right back in the next episode. We didn't see 6 months of episodes of him training. And in Bleach, man, it's every 5 to 10 episodes, this sumbitch is training. Getting his ass kicked, finally figuring it out after a couple episodes, after people have all these long-ass speeches. It's getting old. Can we say he's strong enough and just have some fights and have some action and intrigue? And I wouldn't mind some investigation and stuff. It doesn't have to be all fights. You can investigate some shit. Run around, find people, whatever. But the training and long monologues during the training is just getting old. So they're at number 6. Just started Fortress Macross. I've only seen 6 episodes. So far, so good. There's no particular reason it's here other than the fact I like everything else better. But like I said, I'm just getting started. The story's just started. The beginning of the story is always going to be the weakest part, excitement-wise, because you're still getting used to everything. So we'll see how I feel about this, because I'm about to do 6 more episodes on Sunday. So we'll see how I feel then. But right now, this is where I'm at. Number 4, One Piece. It's picking up. We're getting close to the end of the story arc, I feel like. I don't know exactly how many episodes are left, but we're getting close. Big players are going down. I just watched Queen and King go down, so now we're down to Big Mom and Kato. That's it, as far as I know. Maybe some other little strays and stragglers, and we got CP9 up in there, so that's a problem. But it feels like we're getting close to the end of the story arc, so it's picking up. I'm enjoying it a lot right now. Boruto's number 3, simply because I just watched a 6-episode story arc. All 6 episodes, same storyline. It was adapting a light novel. Introduced a character I really love. Is one you just saw, the 17-year-old chick, Amiria. Love her character. Love everything about it. The 6 episodes were fantastic. It just flew by. It was a really enjoyable storyline. Hope to get to see her more. Somebody was telling me that we've seen her in the past. She was part of them trying to get to Naruto. She was blocking a bridge they were trying to pass. I didn't know who the hell she was. Obviously I knew Asuma had a daughter, but I never made the connection. Even somebody told me, I didn't remember it. But yeah, we've actually seen her in action before. We've seen her trying to stop Naruto and Sarada from getting to... We've seen her try to stop Boruto and Sarada from getting to Naruto. And there was another storyline, too, that she was in. I can't remember which one, but somebody sent me this. So I've seen her in 2 previous storylines. This is the first time she got focus, and I really liked it. So right now, it's my 3rd favorite show, because that was just really good. Number 2 is Gintama. Just started that. Only seen 2 episodes. Just starting to sink my teeth into it, but it's a really funny show, and I love the aliens. and the smoking cast with the nice suits. It's all fun. Like it's like I said, I'm only 2 episodes in, but right now it's my second favorite show because I can't wait to see more. I'm gonna watch some more of that on what day of the week am I doing that? I don't remember. Maybe it's Sunday. I might need to move that. I might need to put that on a different day just so I don't have so much coming out on one day. Yeah, I don't actually remember what day of the week I'm doing it. But I'm doing it again. I did it recently. Going to do some more. Maybe I'll do that on Tuesday. Tuesday's kind of a dead day for me. Other than I'm doing Boruto. But it's a dead day. I don't do anything on Patreon for that. Maybe I'll move that to Tuesday. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is I've seen 2 episodes. Really like it. So far, so good. And number 1 for this week is Seven Deadly Sins. We're starting to get into the end of the storyline. I have seen, I think, up to 18, something like that, 17, 18, maybe 16, somewhere around there. I'm hurtling through season 3. I've watched a lot of season 3 recently, and it's all been very good. And our main character has been a bad boy right now. We're getting new mythology, and we're finding out new things about new characters, about old characters, finding out new things. The mythology's holding up. It doesn't feel like there's any retcons or ass pulls, and so you can't wish for more than that. I'd like to see the humor kick it up a bit. It's not as funny as it used to be, but everything else is really good. So right now, it's my favorite series. By this time next podcast, I will have started Fate Zero, so that'll be here in the mix. And I'll watch more Gintana. I've watched more Fortress Macros, and I've watched more of these other shows, and we'll see how all the rankings shake out from there. But here, this is where we're at. And finally, next podcast topic. I'm going to leave this completely open because I've been putting out the same topics every podcast. Like, for instance, deep dive into school genre has been there every time, and genre conventions have been there every time, and non-canon movies versus long-range series. I'm kind of tired. I can't think of any new ideas, so this will be the category I just leave completely up to you. It's completely comment fueled. If you don't leave comments suggesting show topics, maybe we won't have a main topic next time. So, I'll probably still come up with something. But it's wide open. Here's your opportunity to introduce completely new topics I have not thought of that maybe I can address and talk about. So, leave it to the field. All right. Well, I'm glad you joined me for number 5. I feel really good about this episode. I think this is probably my best podcast episode. You're supposed to get better as you go. I like to pre-produce segments. I'll keep doing that as things come up. Like with my bad memory, instead of trying to remember, I think I remember what I wanted to say about Justice League 2 weeks ago. So maybe that's why I feel so good about it. But this feels like my best one so far. Let me know what you think, and see you in 2 weeks.